Hokage, Chronicle of the True Farewell. Hey, fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction, so don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 26, The mood is unsettling, the curtain is rising. Hidden slammed the door shut. Silence returned to the room. Uchiha Chi stared at the scroll in his hand, his heart sinking. He should have perished within the volcano, yet now he lay here alive. In his hands, he held another scroll containing an S-rank forbidden technique. He wouldn't consider this a blessing. He was alive to breathe fresh air, to see the sunlight filtering through the cracks in the wall, to feel the searing warmth on his skin, inch by inch, scorching the veins on the back of his hand. It was because the great elder, Uchiha Setsuna, had chosen to burn himself in the end, paving the way for him to escape. And yet, damn it. Damn. The weight of Uchiha Setsuna began to weigh down his inner balance, one boulder after another. It weighed so heavily that it felt like he couldn't breathe. Uchiha Chi had a clear understanding of himself. He knew he was just a human being. He laughed when happy, cried when sad, felt depressed when defeated, and became angry when humiliated. He possessed normal human emotions. If someone truly treated him the way Karin had, willingly giving her life for Sasuke, would he stab them like he'd avenged Sasuke? Or would he, like the filial son Itachi, lash out with his sword without regard for his relatives? That wouldn't solve the problem, it would be a pathological venting of anger. Therefore, he had been diligently avoiding contact with the original novel, with the people of this world. But now, at that moment, a piece of paper tucked inside the unrolled scroll landed in Uchiha Chi's hand. The words on it startled him. Just go and deliver it. I'll figure out a solution. And, I'm not dead, Uchiha Chi. He blinked and scratched his head. Finally, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, his expression twisted again, and he closed the scroll, cursing inwardly. Damn it, old man. Why didn't you tell me you weren't dead? You were hiding it so tightly. I've been letting my brother dwell on this nonsense. Get out. Get out. All of you. Uchiha Chi quickly raised his palms and waved them toward the sky, as if to shoo away something foul. The great elder, Uchiha Setsuna, was the last surviving genin of the Uchiha clan from the Warring States period. He must have mastered the technique of faking death, which forcibly rewrites everything that was unfavorable to him. Uchiha Chi, distracted by his concern, had momentarily forgotten this. Just then, the door creaked open, and Hidden, entering with a doctor, happened to see Uchiha Chi waving his hands wildly in the air. It looked as if he were wielding a sword, his hands whirring and swishing. Hidden couldn't help but chuckle. Wow, I didn't expect you to be so energetic. Good. Keep going. I haven't experienced this kind of period, but I've read about it in books. Don't be shy. I understand. Uchiha Chi's face was expressionless, thinking to himself, how could you not have experienced this kind of period before? You're always calling me I'm your uncle, you've clearly never gotten over it. But facing the two people's gazes, Uchiha Chi turned away slightly embarrassedly, coughed, and said, there was a fly just now. At this moment, the tall doctor behind Hidden raised his eyes slightly and said calmly, that's impossible. I've spread insect repellent around the area. Shinin expresses disdain for you. Uchiha Chi's face flushed instantly, but when his eyes swept over the subtitles that appeared before him, he couldn't help but be stunned. Oh, let me introduce you. This is the doctor who travels around the ninja world, Mr. Shinin. Fedouin made way and pointed his thumb at the tall doctor beside him and introduced him. Thanks to him, otherwise you would have died from excessive bleeding. Uchiha Chi looked up, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. The tall doctor, whom Fedouin called Mr. Shinin, wore a brown hood, revealing light gray hair, and a light yellow coat. This outfit, and his name. Isn't this the leader of the Sky Ninja Village, Shinin? Why would this big boss who drove a flying aircraft carrier around the ninja world appear in the land of hot water at this time? And, appear next to Fedouin? Shinin glanced at Uchiha Chi indifferently, as if he was looking at a worthless piece of pork. After lingering on Chi's body for a moment, he said calmly, I've treated your injuries. Make sure you drink plenty of hot water. That's all. With these instructions, Shannon shook his head, seemingly uninterested in Uchiha Chi, and turned to leave. Uchiha Chi watched him go without stopping him. The two had little in common, no conflicts, and certainly not aligned with his goal of dying for justice. So, just as Shannon had little interest in him as an Uchiha, even though Chi knew he was a formidable figure capable of unleashing the 8 gates of ninjutsu and easily crushing him to pulp, he had no interest in provoking him. There's a difference between intentional suicide and insurance fraud, especially when the opponent displays no real ill intent. That's why Uchiha Chi set his sights on the battlefield. Once on the battlefield, opposing identities and opposing goals naturally divide the two camps into two distinct camps. A life or death struggle is perfectly natural. Mr. Shannon is a noble doctor. He doesn't charge for his treatments. Fedouin watched Shannon leave with a look of respect, then turned to Uchiha Chi and said. He walked to the bedside, took out an apple, and tossed it to Uchiha Chi. Uchiha Chi didn't reply, but simply looked at Fedouin with a slightly deep gaze and tutted. Noble? Not necessarily. Uchiha Chi pondered for a moment, and the only reason he could think of for Shannon to come to Fedouin was for the secret techniques of the evil god cult. After all, the forbidden technique known as flesh transformation that he possessed, which could forcibly activate the 8 gates of ninjutsu without dying, might have some connection to the evil god cult's immortal body physique. At this moment, Fedouin sat down astride him and said nonchalantly, See, I saved your life, but I didn't mean to leave you lying here. Since Mr. Shannon says you're fine, then come with me and do me a favor. Uchiha Chi tilted his head, unable to help but feel surprised by his naivete. How can you say such a thing with such confidence? Besides, why should I help you? I haven't stabbed you yet. You should be grateful for my kindness, and you actually want to ask a wandering ninja to do you a favor. Fedouin didn't care at all. He chuckled and said, I've read about this in a book. It seems to be called repaying a favor. You're a good person. You will definitely help me. Uchiha Chi rolled his eyes, slightly speechless. Well, he took back his opinion that this clever Fedouin had brains. Shaking his head, Uchiha Chi raised the corner of his mouth and said calmly, Let's talk about it first. Also, let me be frank. I won't do anything that doesn't put my life in danger. Fedouin's eyes fixed, his smile suppressed, and he asked solemnly, Do you know about the evil god cult? Thanks to my 3 godfathers, Yi Jianzi, Yi Zhang, and Mai Zhenli, for 1 monthly ticket. Thanks to my 3 godfathers, Nanguo Yutong, Jingluo, and Shu Iao 201709111924112222, for 2 monthly tickets. Thanks to Ruiang Qin Wixingchen and Jingluo for the rewards. Oh my god, so many monthly tickets, I'm so flattered. Please collect, read, and recommend. Bang bang bang. Chapter 27, Evil God Ceremony, Bright Future. When Uchiha Chi heard Hidden mention this name, his eyes flickered slightly. He only knew a little about the evil god cult. It was a mysterious organization roaming the land of hot springs, believing in a deity called the evil god, the powerful within the organization, relying on unique blood curses and ritual secrets, possessed the terrifying ability to kill on first sight. In the original novel, the ninja village, fearing war, did nothing and lived in seclusion, even earning the title of the village that forgot war. This conflicted with Hidden's philosophy of saving the land of hot springs through drastic measures. He gradually grew dissatisfied with the ninja village and began to pay attention to the emerging religion of the evil god cult in the land of hot springs. But Uchiha Chi hadn't expected that Hidden, who wasn't even a genin, had already begun to notice this organization during this period. At this time, Fedouin's face darkened, and then he said, Let me tell you this, see, listen, the land of hot springs is hopeless. This country has been involved in the war between the 5 major powers. Do you know what kind of concept this is? The expression on Fedouin's face gradually became gloomy, and he stated in a deep voice, I have seen too many ninjas in the land of hot springs, from Iwagakure, Kirigakure, Kumagakure, Sand Village, and Konoha. Ninjas wearing 4 protectors from these major powers are wreaking havoc on this land. They don't care about the lives of the civilians of the land of hot springs at all. When they meet, they fight to the death, and unleash large-scale ninjutsu indiscriminately. Have you ever had such an experience? While walking on the road, suddenly, a village next to you was submerged by floods, swallowed by gullies cracked by earthquakes, and destroyed by lightning from the sky? Then, my teacher, a genin of hot springs, grabbed my shoulder and told me, Fedouin, leave here quickly. We will be safe when we reach the hot springs village. I remember his fearful expression, his forehead smeared with sweat, his eyes clearly filled with anger, yet he turned his head away, refusing to look. Hearing this, Uchiha couldn't help but take a deep breath. Inside the room, Hidden sat in a chair. Bright sunlight filtered through the large hole in the wall, shone up on him, yet it seemed to be completely swallowed by his body. Like a black hole. Hidden's expression was dark and terrifying, a hint of anger etched across his face. The skin around his eyes stretched as if it were about to crack. He stared at Uchiha with wide eyes, chuckling softly. I asked, Sensei, why didn't you save them? With your abilities, Sensei, you could have done it, right? You could have defeated those Chunin who massacred the civilians, right? You could have killed them, erased all traces, and escaped, right? Kill them. Why didn't you kill them? Why? Do you know what Sensei answered me? Hidden was silent for a moment, then looked up at Uchiha and asked. Uchiha slowly exhaled and sighed, probably something like, Hidden, don't cause trouble, we're no match for them, right? The stark contrast reminded him of Uchiha Setsuna's self-destructive words of defense, uttered to avenge his father's nemesis in Kumagakure. For a single genin, he'd even risked his entire clan's efforts to kill him. It was also Uchiha's first experience with the pathological intensity of the love of the Uchiha. The clan of love. Hidden shook his head, chuckling dejectedly. But the teacher said, those people have nothing to do with us. Don't meddle in other people's business. Listen, he actually said, those people have nothing to do with us. The teacher's hometown is in that village. We left this time to bring the teacher's wife back. He actually said, those people have nothing to do with us. His temper flared, and he couldn't help but violently snatch the apple from Uchiha's hand and slam it to the ground, smashing it to pieces. Uchiha? Are you kidding me? That's my oppo. Uchiha shook his head and sighed. Although he had long anticipated the depths of this world's utter depravity, hearing about this tragedy was still a bit hard for him to accept. This world is just so fucked up, but what does what you're saying have to do with the evil god cult? Hidden nodded and pulled a pamphlet from his waist pouch. He slapped it into Uchiha's hand and said sincerely and excitedly, see, look at this doctrine. The declining country of Soup has finally ushered in its dawn. Its name is, Evil God Cult. The smile on Fidoin's face gradually became perverted. Kill. Kill. Kill everything around. Stand up and kill. Squat down and kill. Put people on the stable and kill. Pour a head full of horse manure and then chop them down to kill. Handcuff their hands. Kick people into the boiling oil pan and kill. Everything. Everything. Ninja. Civilians. Nobles. Daimyo. Kill them all. Kill. Let this country welcome a purge, pave the table, stain the flowers with blood, use the heads of tens of millions, hundreds of millions of living beings to build a jingguan, and start the ceremony, then, welcome the evil god, when the god falls to the ground. All believers in him will suffer eternal pain, erase all sins, the newly born land of hot springs will, embraced by the evil god, become the sixth great nation in the ninja world, and will find eternal peace. As the words fell, Hidden, standing in the blazing beams of light, opened his arms, his face rapt as he gazed directly at the sun. It was as if he had seen a light even brighter than the sun itself. Uchiha swallowed, staring at Hidden in astonishment. He couldn't help but ask, in a trembling voice, have you joined the evil god cult? Hidden suddenly shook his head in frustration. Not really, but they should be arriving soon. Hidden laughed heartily, slapped Uchiha on the shoulder, and said sincerely, see, help me, joining the evil god cult requires a sacrifice. Sacrificing myself isn't enough, I need you, walk the cross with me and become a believer in God. Then, he said, we will stand shoulder to shoulder at the pinnacle of this nation, making the land of hot springs, forever great. Uchiha couldn't help but sweat on his forehead as he stared at Hidden in amazement. No subtitles appeared before his eyes. This meant that this guy was actually sincerely inviting him to be a sacrifice, and he probably thought it was a great thing. Uchiha couldn't help but blush. For Hidden, being a sacrifice was certainly a good thing. He could gain immortality, transcending the terror of death, master the mystical arts and spells from the evil god's secret tome, and from then on, receive a promotion and a raise within the evil god cult. Become general manager, become CEO, marry the Bloody March Scythe and the Black Spear Sisters, and reach the pinnacle of life. The thought was a bit exciting. But Uchiha, see him. Huh? Uchiha was stunned. as if he saw a smooth road laid out before him, designed specifically for insurance fraud. Angels sang, fairies scattered flowers, waiting for him to take a step forward. This is also a good thing for me. Faced with a notorious evil cult and villainous force of the evil god cult, how could Uchiha Chi, a man sent from heaven, a lover of peace and justice, and a man who vowed to lead the ninja world to a brighter future, just stand by and watch? Uchiha Chi, his face filled with excitement, leaped off the bed, clutched the evil god cult pamphlet in his hand, and shook Hiden's hands vigorously. Hiden, good brother. Alright, then let's go to the evil god cult together, we both have a bright future. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Communion and the Scream. Uchiha Chi's plan was simple. Stand up, blend in, defect, mash the A button, and be carried out lying down. Facing such evil, there was no need for any indulgence or mercy. All he needed was a clever trick, a simple disguise, to deceive the cultists into leading him to their headquarters. Then, with a single jerk, Uchiha Chi would free himself. With a single, fierce jerk, he'd shout, "Don't move, I'm a police officer." Hundreds of knife-wielding cultists would descend upon him. Before being hacked to death, he'd even managed to show off his Sharingan and bark, "What, you want to dance too?" fulfilling his childhood dream of showing off in front of crowds while returning home with a hefty bailout payout. What could be more enticing? The mere thought of it filled Uchiha Chi with excitement, his eyes flashing like lasers, as if he'd discovered a new world. The light was even brighter than Hiden's beside him. Even Hiden couldn't handle it. He looked at Uchiha Chi, a bit bewildered. Just now, he'd been debating whether to try and convince him. After all, this was a sacrifice to the great evil god. If it worked, he'd become a fanatic of the evil god, walking the earth. If it didn't, he'd die on the altar. Hiden had already approached several people about this, but they refused to cooperate. He could only shake his head and sigh, sympathizing with their inability to seize the opportunity. He'd give them a swift kick and then let them go. Finally, he'd read about a tactic of repaying a favor in a book, exclaiming, "I've learned it." He'd finally picked up Uchiha Chi and put it to use. Is this the power of knowledge? Hiden suddenly felt a slight itch on his scalp, and he couldn't help scratching it. With that, his eyes widened slightly, and a terrifying thought struck him. Chi was so cooperative, could he be trying to steal the evil god's favor from him? At this thought, Hiden's gaze toward Uchiha Chi subconsciously grew reserved. Just then, "Everyone, come out," a cold voice boomed from outside the door. Hiden's body trembled at the sound, and like a corporate slave about to go on a job interview, he straightened his collar and walked out with a radiant look. If there had been a mirror before him, he would have spent a long time fiddling with it. Uchiha Chi narrowed his eyes slightly, stuffed the scroll containing the S-rank forbidden technique into his leggings, and followed suit. Refugees emerged in groups of 2 or 3 from all corners of the shabby village, gradually converging on the flat ground in the center. However, what surprised Uchiha Chi was that these people were in far better condition than the average refugee. Each villager, while not necessarily rosy-faced, at least Chi didn't see any pale, emaciated refugees. This was clearly abnormal. Due to the war, the kingdom of Yu still held some semblance of order, with only a few noble estates able to afford ninja protection. While this place was not far from Yu Kingdom's capital, Yuan City, it clearly fell outside the protection of the Yu ninjas. Logically, these villagers shouldn't have such a comfortable living environment. 3 men, dressed in high-collared, waist-cinching black robes and leather scripture boxes strapped to their forearms, stood in the center of the crowd. At their feet stood 2 large barrels. The leader had straight black hair, sunken eyes, a deep, expressionless gaze. He glanced around, tilted his head slightly, and addressed the evil god cult members beside him with a cold, "Begin." The 2 men nodded and immediately opened the 2 barrels. Inside, bowl after bowl of cooked meat filled the barrels. The sight of the steaming meat excited the villagers. The 2 evil god cult members didn't hesitate, immediately distributing the meat with buckets. Even the unfamiliar Uchiha Chi had a bowl stuffed into his hands. A truly generous gesture. The evil god cult leader, leading the group, pulled several handwritten scriptures from his scripture box, faced the crowd, and raised his hand slightly. A sudden silence fell. The evil god cult leader, clutching the scriptures, coughed twice, and recited aloud, "Gods are gods. Before we discuss this, I'd like to discuss how the high-ranking officials of the Kingdom of Hot Springs fall short of the gods. First, the nobles who committed the sin of arrogance. Then, the ninjas of the hot springs committed the sin of laziness. Then, the Kumagakure who committed the sin of anger. And then, the evil god cult leader eloquently wrote nearly 1,000 words, detailing the 7 deadly sins of the 5 great nations, the nobles of the Kingdom of Hot Springs, and the ninjas. The content was quite explosive, even detailing the number of concubines held by the daimyo of Hot Springs. The biblical recitation had Uchiha Chi drowsing, but hidden in the villagers beside him, their blood boiling with passion, their hearts etched in their hearts. They longed to storm Uchiha Castle, the capital of the land of Hot Springs, and replace the daimyo's head overnight. After a long pause, the evil cult leader, feeling thirsty after reciting the last sentence, coughed twice. A nearby subordinate immediately brought a glass of water. The evil cult leader took a sip, casually placing the glass back in the subordinate's hand. Then, with his hands behind his back, he said in a cold voice, "Bring forward the offerings, and we may begin the Eucharist." The villagers, overjoyed, prostrated themselves on the ground, their foreheads pressed against the ground, and reverently chanted, "Thank you, divine messenger." Immediately, a woman stood up, her face brimming with excitement and enthusiasm, and hurried forward, holding the hand of a little girl. "Yuko, go. Follow the masters of the evil god cult, that way, we'll have endless meat for the family." The little girl, known as Yuko, remained dazed. As she was being dragged away, about to be handed over to the evil god cult's men, her eyes suddenly widened and she clutched the woman's kimono sleeve. No, 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 her face paled, as if drained of blood, her eyes wide open with terror. "Mom, no, save me, I really don't want to be eaten. I really don't want to die. Mom, look at me, Mom." At that moment, the woman dropped her disguise. With a face filled with terror and tears in the corners of his eyes, he tugged at her sleeve fiercely, almost hysterically shouting, "Let go. Yaozi, let go. What are you trying to do? Are you going to kill our whole family?" Yaozi clutched the woman's sleeve tightly, refusing to let go. With a face filled with fear and trembling, he said, Mom, can't you see? Can't you really see? In the bowl, there's my brother, Mom." Suddenly, the leader of the evil cult, upon hearing Yaozi say the word brother, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately swung a sharp, jet black spear from the sleeve of his black robe. This was a unique ninja tool of the evil cult, similar to a baton. Normally, it was about 20 centimeters long and could be concealed in a sleeve. When extended, it could reach 120 centimeters. Its tip and sides were extremely sharp. It was typically used as a concealed weapon or to perform the cult's unique spells for self-harm. At this moment, the leader of the evil god cult had a grim expression. He took 2 steps forward and fiercely swung his spear. It stabbed straight at the back of the little girl, Yaozi. Uchiha Chi saw this scene and heard these words, and glanced at the bowl of meat in his hand with an unpleasant expression. His face was heavy, and without a second thought, he simply abandoned all his plans. Infiltrating the evil god cult headquarters, the basic attacks, the pretense, and the desire to die, at this moment, all of them were thrown out of his mind. A flame of rage ignited from his heart and spread throughout his body in an instant. His eyes instantly turned scarlet. Uchiha Chi fiercely slammed the bowl of meat to the ground. He leaped out with a righteous step. "Stop it, today is Tuesday, and it's a test run. I beg everyone to read it to the end. There's still 1 chapter left at 5 p.m. Bang bang bang." Chapter 29, The Awakening of the Cowards, the Greed of the Survivors. Meanwhile, elsewhere. In the land of Hot Springs, the capital, the city of Hot Springs smoke. Successive wars shattered the dreams of the people of Hot Springs. Hot spring bathhouses that should have been open were now shuttered, and the streets were filled with half-dressed, shivering refugees. The cold wind blew across his face, biting his bones. In front of an ordinary izakaya, Uchiha Ichiro, with a panicked, fearful expression on his face, his clothes dusty, his eyes bloodshot, stared intently at the corner at the end of the street. He dared not blink, fearing he might miss something. Until, a stern-faced man in a dark blue robe and wooden clogs, calmly stepped into his sight. Relieved, Ichiro exhaled a long, weary breath, calling out anxiously, "Captain Fugaku, oh, It's Seiichiro. Uchiha Fugaku's gaze was calm, unsurprised. He'd already investigated on the way here, and with the intel the Ninja Cat clan had relayed to him, he had a rough idea of what was happening in the land of hot springs. Captain Fugaku, our team was attacked by Kumagakure at the border. The Great Elder, yes, and Uchiha Chi, they're both in grave danger. Seiichiro's heart was gnawed with anxiety, as if countless ants were gnawing at him. He cried out eagerly, Captain Fugaku, please send reinforcements. I'm afraid if it's any later, they'll. Uchiha Fugaku nodded calmly and waved his hand. I understand, go down and rest first. What? How can I rest at this critical moment? C risked his life to save me. I can't. Hearing this, Uchiha Seiichiro's eyes instantly reddened. He spoke anxiously, his face filled with bewilderment, not caring about hierarchy. Uchiha Fugaku looked at him, his brows slightly furrowed. Seiichiro's current state clearly showed signs of strain, having not slept all night. Furthermore, he'd rushed like a dump truck, a distance that should have taken half a day, and arrived in half the time before dark. His physical condition had reached its limit. Fugaku shook his head, saying nothing more. He simply waved his hand at Seiichiro and said calmly, go down. At that moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the doorway, knelt on one knee before Uchiha Fugaku, and reported, Captain, we've found Uchiha Chi's whereabouts. The Uchiha reporting the news looked a little embarrassed, and said, it's just that place is now controlled by the evil god cult. Only Konoha's Anbu know the details. I contacted the Konoha Anbu here, but they told me, no comment. What? Uchiha Seiichiro couldn't help but exclaim. See, is he in the evil god cult now? Those people are crazy, and they're preying on ninjas and children. How could this be? Uchiha Seiichiro's voice almost tinged with tears. In the chaotic land of hot springs, there are several groups of people you should avoid. First, the Kurigakure ninjas. Second, the Uchiha garrison in Hell Valley. Third, this new evil god cult. This new religion is quite mysterious, its whereabouts difficult to track, its teachings spreading rapidly, and its ideologies are extremely extreme. Its motto is everyone around must be killed. Its crimes and cornic methods are simply too numerous to list. See, the Book of the Unknown. Uchiha Fugaku's eyes narrowed slightly, his thoughts unclear. After a moment, he nodded, hummed, and replied in a deep voice, I understand. Fugaku waved his hand, dismissing his men to rest. He then lifted the door curtain and walked into the izakaya. Uchiha Seiichiro, standing nearby, stared blankly at his unmoved expression. Captain Fugaku, what did you say? His face suddenly twisted, and a surge of anger surged within him, causing his entire body to tremble. Just knew it, you have obviously received the information about C, right? And what are you doing now? You look so leisurely. Do you want someone to pour you a glass of wine? Uchiha Kingaelang opened his eyes wide and asked in disbelief, why? Why don't you take action? Do you have to wait until the butcher's knife falls and the people of the tribe die tragically before you will have the slightest fluctuation in your heart? Uchiha Fugaku frowned and glanced at him, but he was not angry, but said lightly, you also heard that place is now under the control of the evil god cult? Uchiha Kingaelang couldn't help but retorted, but, that's C. Uchiha C. Fugaku's eyes condensed slightly, and he looked at Kingaelang's expression carefully, but said lightly, is he special? As far as I know, he should be just an ordinary ninja, right? Besides, you should know about the current situation in the land of hot springs. Kingaelang, what's wrong with you? You wouldn't say such a thing in the past. Uchiha Seiichiro's mind was a tangle of confusion, and he stood there in a daze. But the next moment, he remembered the lone Kumagakure genin who had pushed him outside the death battle barrier. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. Okay, since you won't save him, then I'll save him myself. I'll save him. Uchiha Seiichiro gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He couldn't help but think wildly, that boy, now wandering alone in the evil cult, facing loneliness, fear, and helplessness, perhaps being carried to the altar by the evil cult's followers for a cruel living sacrifice. I've already escaped once, I can't run away again this time. Uchiha Fugaku watched Seiichiro turn around and run out of the house alone, his brows raised in surprise. Following Uchiha Shisui and Grand Elder Uchiha Setsuna, now another was willing to die for this mysterious young man. Uchiha C, what magical power could possibly possess him? Could this group of people, who were once so incompatible, go to such lengths for him? Uchiha Fugaku couldn't fathom it, but he decided to meet this child in person. Facing the blazing sun, he emerged from the izakaya and, turning to a deserted corner, coldly commanded, "Let's follow." The next moment, 7 or 8 crimson eyes suddenly lit up, then vanished with a swift whimper. Meanwhile, outside Tangayan City, a group of Konoha's root soldiers leaped before a pale-faced young man. They knelt on one knee, holding a scroll in their hands and offering it to him. "Lord Orochimaru, this is the scroll of intelligence we've collected on the evil god cult. The person you're looking for should be right here. Long black hair, elongated golden pupils, purple eyeshadow that extends to the wings of his nose, pale skin, and blue magatama earrings. This person is none other than Orochimaru, one of Konoha's 3 great ninjas." Orochimaru stuck out his tongue and licked the corner of his mouth, a hint of excitement flashing in his narrow, vertical pupils. "Not bad, for brigand techniques, flesh rebirth, immortality, and blood dragon eyes that control the ultimate metabolism of body tissues. There are so many interesting things in the land of hot springs right now. Please read, collect, and recommend." Bang, bang, bang. Thanks to Yuanxi Utao, Free Wind BP, Gaokei Dehui, Nanga Yutong, Book Friend 20220806025121467, Book Friend 20221004132011462, Shimeo, Book Friend 20211124201235229, and Book Friend 20210206184543293 for their monthly tickets. Thanks to Zinde Guangguang for the 600-point reward, Puppet Master ZHI, and Tailong Li Renming for the reward. There are also many recommendations from the masters. I have received the kind words of all the foster fathers, thank you. Chapter 30 My evil god cult does not accept illiterate people. C's stern shout didn't cause the evil god cult leader to hesitate. With his eyes wide open, he thrust his spear straight at Yuko. Seeing this, Uchiha Chi, no longer bothering to conceal his ninja identity, mobilized his chakra and swiftly dodged before the little girl. In desperation, he reached out and grasped the piercing black spear. The sharp edge of the spear sliced his palm, and blood flowed from between Uchiha Chi's bandaged fingers onto the ground. Uchiha Chi frowned slightly as he looked at his bleeding hand. Having blood taken by the evil god cult was not a good thing. "I say, stop." He raised his head slightly, his Sharingans glaring coldly at the evil god cult leader before him. "Sharingan? Uchiha?" The evil god cult leader narrowed his eyes, halting his movements, his gaze flickering slightly. The Uchiha people, instead of watching over those blood pond savages in Hell Valley, had come to their evil god cult territory. What were they planning? "See. What are you doing?" At this moment, Hidden, having witnessed this, trotted out and stood between Uchiha Chi and the leader of the evil god cult. He explained to the leader, "Sir, this person is a friend of mine, and he's also determined to join our evil god cult." The leader looked at Uchiha Chi with a cold gaze, as if waiting for an explanation. Seeing the situation ease slightly, Uchiha Chi's eyes flickered, and he immediately spoke, "Hidden is right. Release her, and I'll be the sacrifice." Everyone present was startled, staring at Uchiha Chi in astonishment. This brat was actually willing to sacrifice himself, to save a little girl he didn't even know? In the crowd, a hooded girl calmly observed the situation, her entire body shrouded in the shadow of her hooded black robe, only a few strands of reddish-brown hair falling by her ears. Just now, when the leader of the evil cult stabbed the little girl, she had been about to rescue him, but when she saw Uchiha Chi step forward, she slowly retracted the rooster seal that had already been formed. She stared at Uchiha Chi with bewilderment. How could someone be so foolish? He'd actually sacrifice himself to save others? Wait, see, what are you talking about? Didn't we agree to go to the cross together? Why are you jumping the gun? The first person to break down after hearing Uchiha Chi's words was Hidden, who stared at him in shock. With an expression of "I knew it," Hidden looked like the unemployed vagrant in the interview queue behind Uchiha Chi, vying for the last job spot, afraid that the idiot in front of him would snatch the interviewer's offer. Deep down, he was wailing. This guy, he really was trying to steal the favor of the evil god. You want to be a sacrifice?" Upon hearing this, the leader of the evil god cult couldn't help but be stunned. He took 3 steps back, slowly drawing his spear, and looked at Uchiha Chi, as if examining him. His gaze repeatedly caught a crimson Sharingan in Uchiha Chi's eyes, and he couldn't help but gasp. An Uchiha, coming to the evil god cult, clamoring to be a sacrifice? The evil god cult leader wondered if he was dreaming. Yes, Uchiha Chi strode forward, confidently declaring, I do want to be a sacrifice, sir. Please take me to the evil god cult headquarters. However, the evil god cult leader wasn't pleased by this. Instead, he was stunned, his features twisted into a complex. He stared at the imp in front of him, his expression twitching. Like someone ordering a jackfruit online and getting a durian shell in return. Not only was it disgusting, but it was also prickly. If the Uchiha clan knew that their evil cult had sacrificed an Uchiha child on the altar, they wouldn't have to wait until tomorrow. That very night, the Uchiha garrison in Hell Valley would have rushed across most of the land of hot water. They'd peel off his skin, hang him up, and stuff him with straw. The evil cult leader pondered for a moment, his expression growing increasingly grim. Finally, in front of everyone, despite his reluctance, out of professionalism, he asked dryly, Are you a ninja? Yes, Uchiha Chi nodded. That's right, we don't accept ninjas. The evil cult leader immediately seized the opportunity and spoke. What did you say? Uchiha Chi glared, then turned his head to look at Hidden, his eyes asking, Little brother, what's going on? You invited me to the evil cult to attend the big event, but they said the 5-row convoy was full. What's going on? Are you looking down on me? Hidden was also taken aback, unable to help but stand beside the leader of the evil god cult and remind him, Sir, I remember we're recruiting ninjas, and didn't you ask me last time to capture one more? The leader of the evil god cult looked at Hidden, his smile faltering. I told you to capture ninjas, and you captured an Uchiha? Didn't you know that the Uchiha clan ranked second on the list of the 10 most difficult to mess with in the land of hot water? Oh, maybe I remembered it wrong, huh? The leader of the evil god cult immediately broke into a sweat. But he couldn't bear the responsibility of handing over an Uchiha brat as a sacrifice. His eyes suddenly turned cold, and he quietly winked at the two subordinates standing behind him. Then, with a sullen look, he turned to Uchiha Chi and asked coldly, Do you know what the purpose of our evil god cult is? Uchiha Chi was stunned, wondering if the employment situation had really reached this point. Let's just be a silent sacrifice, waiting to be stabbed. Do I have to sign up for a class and study 2 copies of 5 years of Bible study, 3 years of faith first? Oh, wait a minute, I remember that. Uchiha Chi's face tightened. He secretly took out a booklet Hidden had given him and nervously flipped through 2 pages, trying to turn the interview into an open book exam, but then, suddenly, 2 black spears shot out from either side of Uchiha Chi. The leader of the evil god cult gritted his teeth, ripped open his face, and released the black spears Uchiha Chi had grasped. With a wave of his hands, he drew 2 more pitch black spears from the pouches of his black robe. He glared at Uchiha Chi coldly and shouted, HMPH, you don't even understand the most basic principles. How dare you listen to the gospel of the evil god? My evil god cult accepts no illiterate people. 2 black spears pierced through the air, the oncoming surprise attack instantly causing the hairs on Uchiha Chi's neck to stand on end. A huge sense of crisis instantly washed over him. Uchiha Chi instantly realized that these 3 evil god cult minions were all masters. The next moment, 2 subtitles flashed before his eyes. You are attacked by evil god cult minions, Yunin Shunin, renegade ninjas, and the leader bluntly calls you a singing diva. Talent, combat intuition, S, triggered. An electric shock instantly coursed through his body. The next moment, Uchiha Chi twisted his head, jumped, and his crimson Sharingan flickered left and right, drawing a trembling red line that instantly locked onto the trajectory of the 2 black spears. He twisted in midair and hurled the blood-stained black spear, smashing one of the spears apart. However, the other spear whirled straight at his vitals. Uchiha Chi, recalling the moves of the future Hidden, narrowed his eyes. But, still in midair, he no longer had the strength to twist and turn to block the attack. He could only avoid his vitals at the instant the black spear launched. This would inevitably lead to damage. Once damaged, his blood would be drained. Add to that the cuts he'd incurred when he desperately blocked the evil god cult leader's black spear. If the evil god cult members could pick up the black spear or dig up his blood from the ground, they might be able to use it to unleash the curse, death by blood. Under this terrifying technique, he was nothing more than a dish to be ordered at will. Uchiha Chi's eyes widened slightly, thinking that the land of hot water was truly in danger. A mere group of evil god cult minions passing by could possess such a terrifying sneak attack capability. However, at that moment, a hooded girl in the crowd, frowning, slapped a cattle pen and leaped out. The brown tassels on her ears swayed in the wind. She pulled a kunai from beneath her black robe and formed the sea seal with both hands. Immediately, with her emerald green eyes, as clear as gemstones, she shouted at Uchiha Chi, "Fool, lower your head, water style, water fang blade." Thanks to book friend 20220318213519848 and passerby A's passerby B for sending a monthly ticket. Thanks to Zun's Guang for the 1000 points. Thanks to Ranayan Zaya Ameo for the 500 points, and thanks to Ruyan Jixingchen for the tip. Godfathers, how generous! And so many masters for the recommendation votes, thank you. Please read and collect. Bang bang bang. Chapter 31 3 against 1, the advantage is on my side. A clear shout echoed. The kunai in the girl's hand grew in the wind, transforming into a 60-centimeter long short blade. This technique involves concentrating water in the hand, forming a rotating water blade, somewhat similar to the second Hokage, Senju Tabirama's water style, water blade slash. The next moment, she hurled the water blade, and with a thud, it struck the powerfully launched black spear. The spear deflected slightly, glancing past Uchiha Chi's face. Then, she used water style, water glider. The girl bent down, her palms pressed against the ground, her feet treading on 2 puddles of water, reducing friction with the ground as she slid rapidly beneath Uchiha Chi. Then, she grabbed the falling Uchiha Chi in a princess hug. Uchiha Chi couldn't help but feel a little dazed, and a sweet fragrance reached his nose, like the hibiscus flowers growing by the sea. Before Uchiha Chi could recover, the leader of the evil god cult's gaze darkened as he gazed upon the uninvited visitor. He flung out 2 jet black spears, stomped his foot to the ground, and clenched his fists into the sea seal, poised to unleash some ninjutsu. What are you doing? Are you trying to escape? The girl's emerald eyes narrowed. She glanced down at the stunned Uchiha Chi in her arms, her brow furrowed in disapproval. She flung him aside, nearly sending him careening backward. Then, she formed seals with her hands, Josie way. Water style, mist hiding technique. A white mist rapidly spread, enveloping the entire village. Uchiha Chi felt a soft hand grasp his hand, and then the girl's voice, like a silver bell, echoed in his ears. Go, go. Uchiha Chi looked up at the hooded girl before him. A strand of her reddish-brown hair escaped, fluttering around her ear like a rosy cloud dyeing the sky red. He quickly recovered, his brow furrowed, and he threw his bare hands aside and climbed to his feet. I can't leave. Initially, when he had shielded the girl, Yuko, from the jet black spear, his palm had been slashed by it. Now, his blood lay in that same spot. The evil god cult could simply pick up the spear he had thrown, or dig his blood from the ground, and they would be able to cast the death by blood curse. Uchiha Chi couldn't gamble on whether the other party knew the evil god cult's core curse at this point. If he fled, being killed might be considered suicide. Those 500 million would be gone. From the moment he stepped forward, Uchiha Chi hadn't considered leaving. The next moment, his eyes darkened, his crimson Sharingan swirling. He formed seals with his hands, then decisively slammed them to the ground. Super Death Battle Barrier. This jutsu, newly developed from Moroi, was perfectly suited for this situation. A pale red barrier instantly expanded, locking down the 3 members of the evil god cult and Uchiha Chi. Then, a barrier reaching all the way to the sky opened, squeezing out everyone else in the square. This is my one-man battle. Uchiha Chi rose from the ground, his lips curling up in excitement as he gazed at the hazy, swirling white mist before him. His crimson Sharingan glared at the 3 enemies looming in the mist, his eyes narrowing slightly as he sneered, "You like sneak attacks, huh? Very well, then let's begin round 2. The girl who had aided Uchiha Chi at the crucial moment was squeezed out of the barrier, her face filled with surprise. She watched Uchiha Chi rise from within the barrier, gritted her teeth in frustration. Was he an idiot? She'd already helped him find a chance to escape, yet instead of running, he'd trapped him with the 3 members of the evil god cult. They're simply risking their lives. Hidden, similarly repelled by the barrier, was stunned and couldn't help but shout, "See, are you crazy? Attacking the leaders of the evil god cult will kill everyone in the village. Besides, you're just a genin, you can't defeat them." Uchiha Chi's gaze narrowed slightly upon hearing this. Then, with his back turned, he extended his hand, raised a thumbs up, and laughed heartily. "Don't worry, they won't be able to escape this barrier before I die, Hidden. Take this opportunity to escape with everyone." Without waiting for Hidden's response, Uchiha Chi immediately sprinted around his opponent in the mist. The red light from his Sharingan traced a long red line through the fog. Thanks to the girl's sudden action, he avoided a critical injury. The use of the mist hiding technique gave Uchiha Chi an opportunity to evade. At this moment, the leader of the evil god cult also sensed that things were getting a little tricky. He immediately and calmly instructed his subordinates. He has the Sharingan, giving him an advantage in vision in this environment, but we're outnumbered. 3 against 1, the advantage is mine. Madao, use your wind style to disperse the fog. Takashi, guard the perimeter and protect me. I'll take that boy's blood and use the curse of death by blood to cripple his legs, then kill him. With these words, the leader of the evil god cult immediately rushed towards the pitch-black spear stuck in the ground not far away. The evil god cult member known as Madao formed hand seals and prepared to perform wind style. But at that moment, suddenly, 3 black shadows suddenly pierced through the white fog and attacked the 3. What? Stone. The 3 were startled and quickly stepped back, their movements interrupted. But this was not just stone. This was the masterful Uchiha Ryu Silk Shuriken manipulation technique. In Uchiha Chi's hands, anything could be hurled as a hidden weapon. Uchiha Chi, bearing down in the white mist, sprinted forward, circling the barrier. He continuously picked up stones and dead branches from the ground, then pulled out a pitch-black spear stuck in the ground and hurled it at the 3 men. The first 3 stones only slightly surprised them, but the wave of hurled objects that followed immediately unleashed their fear. In just 10 seconds, Uchiha Chi had picked up and hurled over 30 stones and more than 10 sharp branches with broken ends. A dense barrage of bullets blanketed the area. Have you ever seen a barrage of bullets? Hidden within the countless trees and rocks, a pitch-black spear shot out with a hurricane-like force. The evil god cult leader's pupils shrank. Beside him, Madao, who was about to form a hand seal and unleash a wind escape technique to change the situation, was pierced through the chest by the pitch-black spear with a thud. Then, with a thud, he collapsed to the ground. But this wasn't the end yet. Uchiha Chi landed, hunched over, and paused, his hands already forming hand seals. Ziyin Suzhou Mao Yin. Fire style, Phoenix Fire Jutsu. 6 balls of fire bared their fangs and claws, lunging and biting. Immediately afterwards, he pulled 3 ninja tool threads from the shrunken ninja tool bag at his waist, tied 3 stones to them, and hurled them at the members of the evil god cult. Then, he formed hand seals with his hands, Sichen Mao Yin. Fire style, Dragon Fire Jutsu. He curled his index finger, and dragon fire erupted, dancing along the threads and rushing towards the 2 men. Damn it! What's wrong with this kid? The evil god cult leader's breath hitched, his eyes filled with horror, and he quickly fell to the ground. A wave of shock washed over him. Why the hell is this kid so good at shooting? You think there were 3 of us beating me up? Under the horrified gazes of the 2 members of the evil god cult, Uchiha Chi scoffed and said disdainfully, "Poke, I was the only one who surrounded you. Please read, recommend, and collect." Bang, bang, bang. This chapter is a little late because I found a bug and made some adjustments. Thanks for the questions. Chapter 32, Curse of Death by Blood. Illusion. Swish. 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 A hail of hidden weapons flew through the sky. Their trajectories were as unpredictable as falling petals, and murderous intent hung by a thread like the sudden darkening of dawn. The dense and precise throwing techniques were terrifying. This level of shuriken technique was unheard of by anyone present. It was like a sword-like blow to the buttocks, a real eye-opener for them. Under this barrage of fire, the 2 members of the evil god cult quickly dodged backwards behind a broken wall. Even with their timely avoidance, they still suffered wounds. Boss, this guy's firepower is too strong. The evil god cult leader realized that the situation seemed beyond his control. Before joining the evil god cult, the 3 of them were rebel ninjas from the land of hot springs, at the level of Chunin. They should have been formidable, especially since they were 3 against 1. Meanwhile, Uchiha Chi, empowered by his Sharingan, combined Shuriken Jutsu with fire escape techniques, unleashing wave after wave of attacks like a human machine gun, surprisingly overwhelmed the 2, forcing them to scream in pain and flee in panic. However, having survived the war-torn land of hot springs, the 2 evil god cult members were no fools. Even as they fled, they stuck to their initial plan. By then, the evil god cult leader had already grabbed a jet black spear from the ground and shouted, "Takeshi, hold him down. I'll begin the ritual." The evil god cult member known as Takeshi nodded, his face grim. With a gritted teeth, he leaped from cover, holding the seals he'd been practicing for half a day. Yin Zhou Shen Mao Zi Hiu Zhou Wusu Yin Su Yin Si Zhou Shen Mao. He slammed the ground and declared, "Water release, Great Waterfall Jutsu." This technique has two versions, a low-end version with 18 seals and a high-end, A-level version with only 3. But it was clear that the ninjas from the land of hot water were merely low-end. With a single palm strike, the ground suddenly cracked, sending forth a massive wave, over 3 meters high. It crashed down upon Uchiha Chi, extinguishing all the hurled earth, rocks, and fire techniques along its path. Faced with this massive ninjutsu, Uchiha Chi had no choice but to leap onto the roof of a nearby house to avoid it. Takeshi immediately seized the opportunity. Using his water technique as cover, he pulled a jet black spear from the pouch of his black robe and charged towards Uchiha Chi. Elsewhere, the leader of the evil god cult, who had already drawn the triangle within a circle ritual formation on the ground, his gaze growing increasingly frantic. "Boy, you forced me to do this." He stood there, arms outstretched, his face gradually covered in black lines, stained inky black. Then, holding the spear stained with Uchiha Chi's blood, he fiercely gazed down at his thigh, baring his teeth and squeezing his eyes shut. With trembling hands, he grasped the spear shaft. Puff! The spear pierced his thigh. A ferocious, frantic, and yet satisfyingly perverted cry echoed throughout the room. Suffer, wail, admire, this is the ritual of the evil god, this is love. The curse, death by blood, instantly activated. At that moment, an overwhelming terror gripped Uchiha Chi's heart. Every cell in his body screamed loudly, telling him a message: danger, 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 danger. It was as if a giant red word death had been carved into his head. The next moment, Uchiha Chi's heart pounded wildly, and like a bag filled with water suddenly bursting open, the blood began to rush to that spot. Suddenly, an unknown force stabbed him in the right leg, leaving a bloody hole nearly 4 fingers wide. He couldn't dodge, couldn't block, couldn't resist. Flesh tore apart, blood splattered. The intense pain made him open his eyes wide, and his face began to tremble. Uchiha Chi's right leg suddenly gave way, bleeding profusely. The intense pain almost made him lose his balance. Ho-ha-ho-ha, ha-ho-ha-ha-ho-ha. The evil god cult leader saw this scene, his eyes filled with madness, and his arrogant laughter rang in Uchiha Chi's ears. "Little brat, face the reality. Even for ninjas from a small country like us, under the ritual of the evil god, our hatred can be transformed into power far greater than yours. Tremble. Have compassion, then, stand there and watch your foolish self being pierced through the heart and disemboweled. Cut into pieces. In the end, you will understand, in this world, pain is power." As soon as the evil god cult leader finished speaking, he immediately turned around and shouted at his subordinates who were rushing forward, "Wusi, kill him, kill him." As soon as the words fell, murderous intent suddenly appeared. In front of Uchiha Chi, a sturdy figure suddenly jumped out, swung a pitch-black spear, aimed at Uchiha Chi's neck, and slashed fiercely with his spear. Yet, amidst this crisis, after hearing the evil god cult leader's murderous words, a low laugh suddenly echoed across the field. Uchiha Chi, he was actually laughing. He tilted his head back, covering his face. Standing on the swaying rooftop, stepping on the broken bricks, he looked down at the 2 evil god cult members. His laughter grew louder and louder. A cheeky curve curved his lips, and his eyes widened. Despite being in mortal danger, his eyes were filled with excitement. Ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Right, right, well said. Ninjas are creatures that endure pain. The greater the pain, the deeper the pain, the greater the power. But, Uchiha Chi suddenly stopped talking, glaring down at the 2 men with a voice as cold as ice. "What makes you think your pain is greater than mine?" As he finished speaking, Uchiha Chi covered his eyelids and turned to look at the charging Takeshi, his eyes suddenly widening. "Look at me, you cub." A solitary Magatama spun wildly within its crimson Sharingan, brimming with madness. Anyone who saw it could not help but admire its breathtaking, awe-inspiring beauty. "It's an illusion. Be careful, Takeshi, he's using a Sharingan illusion," the evil god cult leader, startled, immediately warned. Upon hearing this, Takeshi became alert. Looking at Uchiha Chi, who stood motionless like a statue, He realized something was amiss. Is this the real person, or just a phantom left by an illusion? He couldn't even tell the difference. With this thought in mind, Wu Xi's attack suddenly slowed. He leaped to the side of the roof and stood firmly, holding his pitch-black spear, alert. He looked at Uchiha Chi, who was still in the same position as before, motionless, even facing the wrong direction. He thought to himself, as expected, this is an illusion. However, the next moment, the illusion of Uchiha Chi in Wu Xi's eyes suddenly exploded. He pulled out the last ninja tool he had from his ninja tool bag, a silk thread. He wrapped it around his fingers, pulled it to the end. And it cracked and sparked, like a sharp long sword. Uchiha Chi's face was ferocious, and he suddenly jumped up and leaped forward. Using a swastika-shaped physical technique that he had only seen once, he locked the man in a strong position. With his elbow tightly gripping Takashi's neck, he kicked the sole of his foot, sending him tumbling sideways. He then lifted his leg to clamp onto Takashi's elbow, his other foot pinning Takashi's waist. With his free hand, he yanked the stretched silk thread into a blade and slashed it down. Swish! Takashi, dead. Then, Uchiha Chi, panting, tumbled down from the rooftop, dragging his almost paralyzed right leg as he stepped towards the dazed leader of the evil god cult. He shook his head and scoffed, sighing, "This is the Sharingan's illusion. Please read, recommend, and bookmark this." Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 33, A Tragic Victory, Resentment, and the Girl Under the Moon. Mercifully, Uchiha Chi's Sharingan had only recently awakened. No one had taught him how to use it. Forget Genjutsu, all he could use was the observation function of his one Magatama Sharingan. He couldn't even copy ninjutsu, only imitating the physical techniques he'd seen. In that moment, Uchiha Chi had truly risked his life. If the opponent had insisted on a spear strike, with his leg broken and no knowledge of body flicking, Genjutsu, or substitution techniques, Uchiha Chi wouldn't have had any room to dodge. Life and death hung in the balance. Sadly, despite his inability to master Genjutsu, he had successfully tricked the opponent into believing he did. He'd won the gamble. Slowly dragging his right leg, Uchiha Chi inched towards the leader of the evil god cult, his face darkening. Gnashing his teeth, a hint of disappointment. These idiots, even 3 against 1, could still be defeated. Do they even know how to play? You've already used the curse of death, blood, so why not stab him in the heart? You open your mouth and talk about the evil god, then shut up about the pain. Why don't you offer a sacrifice? Will a few more stabs kill you? The leader of the evil god cult was terrified. He watched Uchiha Chi approach, a chill emanating from his body, his back instantly drenched in cold sweat. Unlike the future hidden, he didn't possess the immortality created by the evil god cult through various bizarre sacrifices. That stab in the leg was a real one. Furthermore, to restrain Uchiha Chi's movements, he hadn't yet attempted to stop the bleeding. The bleeding was so profuse that a sickly paleness had begun to appear on the elder brother's dark face. Even the Nestorian cult would have praised him as an expert. By restraining Uchiha Chi, he was also restraining himself. And so, the end result was this: Uchiha Chi scrambled forward a few more steps, a sinister grin on his face. He yanked out the pitch-black spear stuck in the ground. Then, he lunged forward, his arms extended, like a full moon waxing. Suddenly, a pitch-black spear ripped through the air, slashing out in a crescent-shaped arc of light. With one swipe, it first ripped the evil god cult leader out of the ritual circle, interrupting his spell, Death by Blood. Immediately afterwards, a beam of black light shot out, piercing his throat and pinning him to the ground. Evil god cult leader, dead. At this moment, the talent announcement rang out, "Dang, you valiantly counterattacked the enemy who taunted you, but they were already dead." Unable to refute, your counterattack was powerful, granting a critical hit bonus. You gain a random skill from the opponent, wind style, sky slashing wave, proficient, C, skill critical hit, current attribute, wind style, sky slashing extreme wave, mastery, B, you gain a random skill from the opponent, rope escape, E, your heart steel level increases, the pale red barrier that reached the sky dissipated, and Uchiha Chi, panting heavily, collapsed to the ground. His body was covered in water and dust, and the bloody wound on his right leg was a shocking sight. All around him, silence fell. The villagers in the square stared blankly at Uchiha Chi, who, alone against 3 members of the evil god cult, slew them one by one. But there were no cheers, no flowers, no praise. The woman holding the little girl, Yaozi, stared at the three motionless members of the evil god cult with horror. Then, her expression turned completely to fear. Driven by this fear, the woman suddenly stood up, pointed at Uchiha's nose, and cursed him with a shrill, uncontrolled curse. "You beast, what have you done? You actually killed a leader of the evil god cult? Do you know what this will bring to us?" As if all the strength had been drained from her, the woman leaned against the wall, crying and laughing, her face grim. "It's over, it's all over, we'll all die here, haha, die here." As if a sudden thought struck the woman, her face darkening. She flung Yuko aside and lunged forward, venting her anger, intending to tear Uchiha's face apart. At that moment, the hooded girl leaped in front of Uchiha, blocking her path with a slender palm. She said nothing, her gaze cold as she formed a seal with one hand. A swirling water blade gradually took shape in her hand. "Get out!" Uchiha, by then, had no time to pay attention to his surroundings. From the excessive blood loss, he was dizzy, short of breath, pale, and his hands and feet were cold. He glanced at his injuries and couldn't help but smile. With such serious injuries, without a medical ninja nearby, he would surely be dead. He shook his head, trying to stand, but his vision went black and he fell head first. Just before he closed his eyes, he suddenly saw Hidden Dragon Shannon towards him. The smile on Uchiha's face suddenly froze, and a hint of fear flashed across his eyes. "Wait, damn it, don't come over here." Uchiha remembered, this Shannon guy seemed to be a medical ninja. Moreover, he was a high-end medical ninja in the current ninja world, second only to Tsunade, one of the three ninjas. Even medical ninjutsu of the level of Palm Immortal Jutsu was no problem. Meanwhile, on the other side, outside Tangayan City, underground at a large refugee gathering point, pools of blood stretched, and dead bones formed a forest. From the deep wind tunnel, faint shrill howls drifted. The pale-faced leader of the evil god cult, dressed in a black robe, stood by the pool of blood. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked down. An equally pale-faced evil god cult ninja suddenly landed and half-knelt on the ground. "Sir, we've found it. What did you find?" The evil god cult leader frowned and looked at him coldly. The black-robed subordinate nodded, a sickly smile on his face. "We've found the child with the special physique you mentioned. I just sent 3 elite soldiers to the village, and they'll be bringing the child back soon. In this way, we might actually be able to create a monster with immortality." The evil god cult leader narrowed his eyes, his mouth curling up slightly. "Not bad. Truly not bad, Lord Evil God. I'll surely be pleased with this offering." However, unbeknownst to both of them, a small white-scaled snake lay quietly in a corner of the blood pool. Quietly observing everything within the cave, its tongue hissing as it spitted out its tongue. Night fell. The sky was cloudless, the full moon shone brightly. A blazing bonfire illuminated the night sky. Uchiha slowly opened his eyes. On a nearby tree stump, a girl, preoccupied with thoughts, stood facing the wind, gazing up at the inky darkness of the distant land. Her long, reddish-brown hair fluttered in the wind. She seemed to have heard something and turned suddenly. Then, Uchiha saw the girl with the emerald-green eyes from the day. Now, she had removed her hood, revealing a delicate and lovely face. A strand of reddish-brown tassels curled around her radiant white ears, and the rest of her long hair was pulled back into a bun, slightly curved like the moon. She looked like a fairy descending in the moonlight. "Are you awake? Where am I?" Uchiha struggled to his feet, only to find he was bandaged again. He tried to move his right leg, and with a deadpan expression, he realized it had indeed healed. While still a little painful, it no longer affected his movements. "You killed the members of the evil god cult. This village doesn't welcome you anymore, and we've all been driven out." The girl crouched down slightly, observing Uchiha's expression with curiosity. She asked, "I'm talking to you, are you really not afraid of death at all?" Under her piercing, emerald eyes, Uchiha suddenly felt his face flush. He coughed quickly, changing the subject. "Have you seen Hidden?" As soon as she finished speaking, a resentful voice suddenly echoed from nearby. "See, you bastard. I'm going to kill you. Please read, recommend, and bookmark this." Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 34. Then let me be your evil god. Not far away, the arrogant brat's eyes flashed red as he threw all the firewood in his hands to the ground with a clatter. He rushed forward and grabbed Uchiha by the collar. Tears welled in the corners of Hidden's eyes, and he sniffed furiously. Beneath his defeated expression, his eyes blazed with rage. He grabbed Uchiha Chi by the collar and roared, "Do you know what good you've done? Didn't we agree to join the evil god cult together? Didn't we agree to have a bright future together? Why did you trample on my dreams, stomp on my will, and destroy it like it was worthless?" Hidden's voice gradually broke, taking on a sob. Why? Tell me, why is this happening? I thought we were friends." A chill early spring breeze blew across his face, and the clear light reflected off the mist. A crackling sound of charcoal crackled in front of the bonfire. Hidden lowered his head, like a homebody who'd failed his first job search. While summarizing the reasons for his failure, he discovered that the cause was a sudden, swift reversal from a fellow player he'd met on Bink 60, who'd been hanging himself, and had slashed the rope vendor. This was a resounding blow to Hidden, already deeply disappointed with the Yugu village's inaction and eager to join the evil god cult and restore the glory of the Yugu kingdom. Uchiha Chi took a deep breath and gently patted Hidden's hand, which had been gripping him by the collar. This was the second time Hidden had saved him. And he could understand Hidden's feelings. It was so similar to how he'd recently attempted to kill the 3 Kumagakure members with a self-destruction, only to be forcibly pinned to the ground by a mysterious scroll, leaving him with nothing. The same unfulfilled desire, the same deep despair, made Uchiha Chi want to eat Malloy to death. Imagine you've donned your suit and tie, spent the better part of 6 months preparing for work, and then confidently arrive for your top job. Only to find out the entire company you're interviewing for is busted during a crackdown on pornography. You return home, disheartened, and your mother hands you a toilet plunger and tells you to clean the bathroom. You enter, only to find it has expanded 50 times its size, the size of a football field, and overflowing with Awakens. The disparity between ideal and reality is truly despairing. The land of hot water is now a football field overflowing with Awakens. And now, the arrogant Hidden, without a bloodline limit, powerful ninjutsu, or even money or power, doesn't even have a proper toilet plunger. Uchiha Chi looked directly at Fidun, exhaled deeply, and asked in a heavy voice, "Fidun, do you really want to join the evil god cult? Your dream, your will, is it to become the next demigod to recover the kingdom of Tang, or to really believe in that bullshit evil god?" When Fidun heard this, it was as if someone hit him on the head with a club, and he immediately shouted angrily, "What do you know? See, or rather, Uchiha Chi, you are ninja from a big country, a big ninja village, and a big family. What do you know? The kingdom of Tang is sandwiched between big countries. It has nothing, no sovereignty, no hope, no power, so we can only rely on the evil god, pray for his coming and purge everything. Only in this way can we save the hopeless Tang." Uchiha Chi's eyes gradually became sharper, and he asked in a deep voice, "So, all you want is a future where the kingdom of Tang is saved? Just a power that is enough to save the kingdom of Tang. This is the evil god you need, am I right?" Hidden was silent for a moment, then shook his head and scoffed. "Are you going to try to reason with me like my Jonin-sensei?" His gaze turned to Uchiha Chi, and he sneered, "Uchiha Chi, you're so sweet, only a ninja like you, from a great nation, a great village, and a great clan, could say such beautiful things, a bright future, immense power, such inspiring words, but who'll give it to me, if I don't beg and plead like a dog? Who'll give me the power? I'm powerless and helpless, with nothing left." Uchiha Chi's eyes darkened. He thrust forward, piercing the brat's nostrils with 2 fingers, and delivered a brutal shoulder throw. Hidden hadn't anticipated Uchiha Chi's sudden attack. With a thud, he was thrown to the ground. He lay on his back, looking up at Uchiha Chi from this perspective. Uchiha Chi's eyes flickered open and closed, his scarlet Sharingan suddenly illuminating. Bending down, he stepped on the delicate green grass and stood astride Hidden, staring straight at him with his eyes. Then, with a firm gaze and a resolute tone, Uchiha Chi shouted in a deep voice, "I'll give it to you. Don't you want power? I can be your power. Don't you want a future? I can carve out such a future with my own hands. Since you are desperate, helpless, and crying bitterly, feeling that you are powerless and can't do anything, then you might as well stand behind me. Just stand behind me and watch carefully while I take away your will and fulfill the dream you long for." Uchiha Chi raised his sword finger and struck Hidden's forehead fiercely. In the most determined tone, he shouted, "Let me be your evil god." Uchiha Chi's voice was resounding, hitting Hidden's ears like a huge bell. Hidden's eyes froze, as if these words had ripped a wound open his heart's defenses. Then, unnoticed, a tear slipped silently down his chin, dripping onto the wet ground. In the land of hot springs, no one had ever so firmly acknowledged Uchiha Chi's will and the validity of his dream as Uchiha Chi did. Everyone would only say to Hiden, "Run away, we can't defeat them, they have nothing to do with us, become the evil god's dog." But this man denied everything. He even arrogantly threatened to snatch the dream from the arrogant Hiden, the man who had always looked down on others. Uchiha Chi, he was a madman, his arrogance was limitless. Hiden opened his mouth, swallowed his tear-stained saliva, and stared blankly at Uchiha Chi. He watched the black Magatama slowly turning into his crimson eyes. That Magatama seemed to be formed from the strongest wool in the world. Under those captivating eyes, his throat suddenly felt dry, his scalp tingling and itching. Every possible argument he could muster paled in that moment. Finally, his defenses shattered, he could only ask, despairingly, "Why, you're just a genin, an Uchiha with only one Magatama Sharingan, a mere cannon fodder in this world-shattering Third Shinobi World War. How dare you say such a thing?" Uchiha Chi frowned, glancing guiltily at the line on his dashboard. Employee, Uchiha Chi, insurance status, paid. He coughed twice and spoke righteously. "Please collect, recommend, and read this. This is truly important to me, who has no resources for chapter promotion, no money, and only a toilet plunger. Thanks to my adoptive father, Musasa, and Jihongji for their 2 monthly passes. Thanks to my adoptive supplier, Fuge, for his 1 monthly pass. Thanks to everyone for your recommendations. Bang bang bang. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. I will use my eyes to light up the world. Fiden, do you still remember your ninja way? Uchiha Chi's eyes became sharp and he looked directly at the brat in front of him. Under the sincere and ardent gaze, Hiden's eyes dodged unconsciously, and he murmured, "My ninja way, yes, your ninja way." You raised your big nostrils to the sky and confidently compared yourself with your thumbs. You shouted that you, who had nothing, wanted to become a Hokage, and the chaos in the kingdom of you, drive out all the ninjas in this land, and become the next demigod. Uchiha Chi looked directly at Hiden, raised the corners of his mouth and smiled slightly, and teased, "This is what you said. Do you still need me to help you recall it?" Hiden's face showed a trace of embarrassment, with a complicated expression, and he stammered in response, That's just." However, before he could finish, Uchiha Chi interrupted him with a cold tone, "You want to say that it's just big talk, empty talk, and lies. The real world is far more cruel than this." He grabbed Hiden's collar, and the Magatama swirled in his scarlet eyes with full momentum. "Don't be stupid, you deny your heart, your will, your dreams, and then accept reality, filling your empty mind with dreams, pushing yourself to the gallows, shaking your head and begging for mercy before a being more powerful than the Union village. Then what's the difference between you, alive and dead?" "Wait, Hiden choked on the words, as if he was desperately trying to justify his actions, trying to convince Uchiha Chi that his actions were right, the best option when there were no other options. But Hiden couldn't continue. Because, deep down, he knew that the evil god cult's tenet, killing to stop killing, was nothing more than drinking poison to quench thirst. Uchiha Chi exhaled and said in a deep voice, "Hiden, you are a strong man, determined to die. You want to sacrifice yourself in exchange for the evil god's grace, but I tell you, this is just an escape." Uchiha Chi's words were like a hammer, hammering down on Hiden's heart, shattering the barriers he had built up around him. Peeling back the sugar coating of the evil god cult, it revealed nothing but a stinking, SH-like substance. This forced Hiden to face reality. His face flushed, then paled, veins etched across his forehead. A hand suddenly grasped Uchiha Chi's hand that was grabbing his collar. He tried to pry it free, but with his strength, how could he possibly be a match for Uchiha Chi, already a genin? Finally, his face flushed red as he lashed out at Uchiha Chi, "Enough. Uchiha Chi, enough. Get out of here. I don't need your pity. I don't want your lectures. I've heard that countless times in the land of hot water over the past 10 years. How can you possibly understand my plight, my suffering? Should I say you truly be a ninja of the great ninja realm? Don't you find that condescending expression of yours disgusting?" Yet, facing Hiden's hysteria, Uchiha Chi smiled. "Really?" He grabbed Hiden by the collar and slammed him to the ground, his expression growing increasingly ferocious. Then, like a villainous boss from the final stage, He humiliated the level 1 hero wielding the novice village's longsword, disparaging his so-called dreams as worthless. Uchiha Chi's eyes flashed with ferocity, and he shouted fiercely, "You kid, listen to me carefully, I'm not preaching to you, I'm proving to you, my ninja way is above yours." Uchiha Chi let go of Fedouin, stood up, looked up at the full moon and the boundless night sky, his eyes gradually becoming deep. He was silent for a moment, then looked down with a defiant, indifferent expression. "Hidden, the land of hot water you see is but a tiny corner of the entire ninja world. Your goal is but a tiny corner of my ninja way, something I will accomplish sooner or later, and my ninja way." Uchiha Chi suddenly opened his crimson Sharingans. His tone suddenly shifted. In a tone icy and emotionless, he spoke calmly, "It is to overthrow the existing 5 great nations, unify the entire ninja world, and end the incessant wars since the Warring States period, to bring eternal peace to this world. This is what I must do, even if it means facing life and death. I will use these eyes of mine to illuminate the entire world." As he finished his words, a sudden silence fell around them. Hidden, with a look of shock in his eyes, the girl with long, brown-red hair, and Shannon, who had sat in the corner, silent as if he didn't even exist, all cast their gazes on Uchiha Chi. Their eyes flickered repeatedly, as if deep down, they were all touched by Chi's words. Fedouin couldn't help swallowing, looking at Uchiha Chi with shock. "See you." Before Fedouin could speak, a girl with long brown-red hair stood up from the tree stump and calmly examined Uchiha Chi, as if she were looking at an arrogant lunatic. Then, she coldly asked, "How will you fulfill your ninja way? What makes you dare to promise such a thing? What gives you the confidence to accomplish something that has never been accomplished before you are the 5 great nations, the entire ninja world, Sarutobi Hiruzen, known as the strongest Hokage, the 3rd Raikage, possessing the most profound contradictions, the 3rd Tsuchikage Noki, who has surpassed his bloodline limit and reached the realm of bloodline elimination, the Sannin, the demigods, the tail beasts, the Jinchuriki. So many renowned ninjas, legendary beings, dare not make such boasts. You, what makes you dare?" The girl's words were resounding, her accusations like a sharp knife, pressing against Uchiha Chi's throat, leaving him no room for maneuver. And Uchiha Chi didn't even try to evade the question. As a tough guy sent from heaven, his duties had been determined from the very beginning. Therefore, at this time, he could speak without hesitation and with determination. What is important is never talking, but doing. Not running away. No one stands at the top from the beginning. No matter how difficult the task is, it is achieved step by step. Then, he looked at Hidden with shock in his eyes and said calmly, "Hidden, you and I are no different. Compared to the entire ninja world, all I have is this insignificant life, but I just need to make sure that my feet have set foot on this path. As long as I stand at the front of this path, my back will naturally attract countless people to look at me. Even if I fall, there will be thousands of me standing behind me." Uchiha Chi's words were firm, his eyes were firm, and he said without any evasion, "In the end, this dream will definitely come true, and I have already taken the first step to realize my ideal. Now, it's just a matter of taking the second step. Starting from the land of hot water, starting from here, I will end the chaos in this land, bring peace to this country. Please collect, recommend, and read on." Bang! 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 You have accepted a new mission, to personally end the Tangayan rebellion. Continue reading. Chapter 36, Declare war on your future self. Embark on a lonely and fatal road. As Uchiha Chi finished speaking, a sudden gust of wind swept in, dispersing the moonlit mist and fanning the flames, causing the bonfire to burst into flames. Sparks flew, and the young man's profile, illuminated by the enormous full moon, captured the eyes of the 3 present. Though bandaged and shambling, he looked like a man who had just been seriously injured and left the front line. His arrogant smile held a breathtaking charm. The emerald eyes of the long-haired girl, dazed at Uchiha Chi's confident smile, met his gaze, seeming to be drawn into the boy's grand vision. But she quickly recovered, her lips curling upwards, as if she had thought of something intriguing. "Really, if that's the case, then I accept you as my opponent, Uchiha Chi." She narrowed her emerald eyes, tucked a brown tassel from her ear behind her, and gazed up at the full moon in the sky. She considered her words, then smiled. "Let's get to know each other again. My name is Ming Tsukamiyame. Though this may come as a shock to you, neither you nor I have yet reached the point where we can truly stand on the shinobi world's most dazzling stage. However, as long as you still harbor such delusion of becoming the conqueror of the world, with such mad thoughts, Then one day, we will meet again on the battlefield." The girl's emerald eyes gleamed with gentleness and seriousness, yet deeper within them, a hint of rational, ruthless murderous intent flickered. "When that time comes, I will show you no mercy." Uchiha's Sharingan was still active, allowing him to capture every inch of the expression on the face of the girl named Tsukimiya. This name, this hair color, this beauty, coupled with this resolute will. Uchiha finally recognized the other party's true identity. Tsukimiya, or Terumi Mei, the fifth Mizukage in the future mist. Mastering the unique double bloodline limit, the powerful female ninja who puts an end to the chaotic era of Blood Mist Village. Uchiha couldn't help but want to laugh. Looking at Terumi Mei's cute little face that still hadn't lost its childishness, he almost blurted out, "You're a nice person." This feeling of suddenly making a big enemy for yourself and threatening to scatter your ashes. To be honest, it feels a little good. But, can you not wait until later and scatter me now? Uchiha raised his eyebrows, with a tone that was 3 parts weird, 3 parts arrogant, and 4 parts resentful, and asked provocatively, "Is this a declaration of war against me?" Terumi Mei shook her head and said with some regret, "Uchiha, even though I watched the battle you fought in the village, I have to say it was very exciting. Excellent shuriken skills, endless fire escape, and the combat IQ shown at the last moment. Even in my village, you can be called a talent, but I'm sorry, with your current level, you should not be my opponent. It's even more impossible to be an opponent of those who are stronger than me, the real geniuses of my generation, Minato Namikaze of Konoha, Mainjetsu Hazuki of Kirigakure, the missing scorpion of Sand Village, Killer Bee of Kumagakure. These people are the trendsetters of the ninja world today. Even I envy their talents." Terumi Mei paused, with seriousness in her clear green eyes. "You possess such terrifying ambition, and with the Uchiha surname, you might just rise to the top in the future. You can consider this a declaration of war against you. To your future self, declaration of war." The girl's words drifted on the wind, the unwavering resolve within them gleaming in the moonlight. Uchiha felt a wave of frustration upon hearing this. Madarumi, a genius of Kirigakure, should have mastered both of her Kekkei Genkai by now, whether it was melting release or boiling release, making killing her a piece of cake. If she showed any hostility, he'd have every reason to fight her. He'd be dead in a flash, taking home his 500 million and enjoying his life. But if she doesn't want to kill you now, you can't force her to shoot you with a knife to her neck. However, Uchiha remained undeterred, only smirking inwardly that you probably wouldn't be able to wait until that time came. It was hilarious. He, Uchiha, was going to the evil god cult right now. A row of knives awaited him. Madarumi wouldn't even see the day he could chop me down. Of course, he wouldn't miss this opportunity. After all, it was at least a bit of insurance, wasn't it? So, Uchiha looked at Terumi Mei seriously, then suddenly smiled and said confidently, "Very good, Tsukimiya, then I'll look forward to the day you come to kill me. I hope that you who attempt to stand in my way will give me a good time." However, when Uchiha's words fell on Terumi Mei's ears, her brain trembled. "Look forward to that day, charge, enjoy." These words automatically arranged and combined in her mind, forming a love story that made her blush and her heart beat fast. Terumi Mei blinked sharply and gasped, her clear green pupils trembling, and her pure white ears instantly filled with blood and turned red. She immediately turned away and snorted awkwardly, "It's up to you." "I won't be happy." Uchiha's smile froze, and he thought to himself, "You're blushing like a bubble teapot, brother. I wanted to confirm with you the specific day to come and chop me down. If you come too late, you won't even be able to touch my ashes. What's the matter with you suddenly looking so arrogant?" Uchiha shook his head, not daring to think about such things. He turned around and looked at Fiden, who had already climbed up from the ground, slapped him on the shoulder, and grinned. Then, he said seriously, "Fiden, the evil god cult is not a good thing. Killing everything around it will not solve the problem. On the contrary, for the current kingdom of Hot Springs, the evil god cult not only cannot save this country, it is a hazard. This worm clings to the aorta of the kingdom of Hot Springs, constantly sucking fresh blood, and constantly kidnapping children to complete the so-called rituals. In the end, it will only accelerate the decline of this country. I think that you who have read the book should understand this truth." Fido nodded heavily, and then fell silent. The light in his eyes seemed to be fading. Knowing it doesn't mean that he can make a heroic move. Because of the war and the inaction of the U Ninja and the U Kingdom nobles, The evil god cult has grown and expanded wildly in this land, and now it has become uncontrollable. Fearsome is a ninja student who is not given a genin. The only choice he can make is to choose the lesser of two evils. Looking at the awakened fearsome in front of him, Uchiha Chi smiled and felt relieved for his little brother's awareness. The reason he said so much is because he himself is an awkward guy who doesn't want to owe favors to others. Fearsome saved him twice, and he should repay him. The only way to repay him is to prevent fearsome from contacting the evil god cult. The little brother in front of him, fearsome, has read books and newspapers, has his own understanding of the situation in the ninja world, has a keen sense of smell, and can even be called smart. Fearsome and the crazy and fun-loving idiot in the future are obviously two different species. The only reason Uchiha Chi could surmise for this transformation was the bloody and brutal rituals of the evil god cult. Exchanging power with the devil comes at a price. Among the vast number of test subjects, only Hidden, tortured to madness, ultimately succeeded in appeasing the evil god and gaining immortality in return. He sacrificed his brain for the future of the land of hot springs, only to be deprived of it and driven mad, slaughtering all the ninja who had nurtured him. This was undoubtedly a tragedy. Uchiha Chi would never let such a tragedy happen again. Don't look so gloomy. I'm here, aren't I? Uchiha Chi laughed heartily, patting Hidden's shoulder vigorously. Since I said I would bring peace to this country, I will do it. Those whom the ninja dare not interfere with, I will interfere with. Those whom the ninja dare not kill, I will kill. Those evil god cults that the ninja dare not provoke, I will destroy. Brother, just hide behind me and watch me unleash my brilliance. Uchiha Chi put his arm around the shoulders of fearsome, who was a head shorter than him, hit his chest with his fist, and laughed softly. That's enough. Uchiha Chi let go of fearsome. Without saying anything else, he turned around and walked forward. No need to see me off, fearsome. Go back to your hometown and wait for my good news there. After saying that, Uchiha Chi raised his hand and waved to the three of them as a farewell. He was alone, facing the grand moonlight. He crossed the bonfire, past the three people, and walked towards the road of lonely death. Thanks to Nanguo Yutong, Puppet Master ZHI, LSP, you can rest assured, Dororo for a monthly ticket, and 2 monthly tickets from friends on Kaiu. Thanks to the Galaxy Defense Forces Earth office for 1000 points of rewards, and a netizen who often reveals his name for 500 points of rewards. Thanks to all the above godfathers for their strong support. Thanks to the gentlemen for the recommendation votes. Please read, collect, and recommend. Bang bang bang. Chapter 37, The Flaming Sword and the Forbidden Deadly Technique. Sending oneself to death is a skill, especially in a situation like this, with the land of hot water branching out. On the battlefield, opposing sides can fight without burden due to opposing positions and ideologies. But when flying alone, one must be extremely cautious in sending oneself to death. Without provoking the enemy, Uchiha Chi impulsively rushed in and slaughtered them, forcing the enemy's experts to intervene and kill him. That's not insurance fraud, that's suicide, and it's sheer stupidity. Even if one knows the enemy is a heinous criminal and bound to commit a grave error, resulting in disastrous consequences, but they're harming the people of the land of hot water, what's your business as a ninja from the land of fire? In such a situation, one must still endure. Ninja positions are never clear-cut between good and evil, it depends more on who sits on the chair. The evil god cult is a murderer, yes, but how much better can the Uchiha clan be in the future? Even now, the foolish Uchiha Obito will still be the villain, the mastermind behind the scenes, standing against all of humanity. So, Uchiha Chi wanted to commit insurance fraud. Ahem, fighting evil. He first needed to clarify his position. A Fire Country native, a Konoha ninja, a member of the Uchiha clan, such positions clearly had nothing to do with the suffering civilians of the land of hot water. But as a kind brother to a savior, Hidden, he was provoked and attacked by members of the evil cult in an effort to help his younger brother escape his misguided ways. Then, in a fit of rage, he stormed the cult's headquarters and slaughtered them all, only to be tragically slain by a single miscalculated move. His righteousness was so profound it moved one to tears. And that wasn't enough. He even claimed to be a heaven-sent tough guy, someone who would change history and change the world. This was like a huge lion climbing a tall tower. Everything was ready, only the east wind was missing. Indeed, Uchiha Chi had never been a pushover. All of this was part of his plan. The full moon hung high, its clear light radiating across the fields, stained with a faint, ethereal hue. The fields, covered in lush green grass, were painted a faint, rich color. Bidding farewell to the three, Uchiha Chi forged ahead against the wind. His upper body swathed in bandages, his lower body in the overalls he'd worn since leaving the ninja village, his ninja tool bag tucked away empty. Having fought the Kumagakure trio on the evil god cult, he'd discarded all his ninja tools. Not even a thread remained. The disposable ninja cat contract, meant for replenishment in this crucial moment, had been given to Seiichiro. His equipment was now completely empty, practically nothing. In this state, with only the strength of a genin, attempting to break into the evil god cult's headquarters would undoubtedly be a sure death. Since his fate was sealed, Uchiha Chi wondered if perhaps he could still do something. After all, he'd promised Hidden that he would eliminate the evil god cult. So, of course, he had to do it with all his might. Uchiha Chi pondered for a moment, then pulled out the scroll left to him by the great elder, Uchiha Setsuna, from his leggings. The secret of the Uchiha style, S-rank forbidden sword technique. Unfolding the scroll, Uchiha Chi gazed thoughtfully at one of the jutsu. The reason this scroll was classified as an S-rank forbidden jutsu wasn't because the swordsmanship within was particularly fancy, powerful, or difficult to master. It was because one of the jutsu techniques was an A-rank ninjutsu. Fire release chakra mode. Among ninjutsu, the most well-known are the 8 gates of ninjutsu in the lightning release chakra mode, known as the lightning release armor. The former was a unique technique perfected by Konoha's Mighty and Might Guy, a father and son. In the near future, Mighty opened the 8 gates of death and, on the front lines of the Hidden Mist, forcibly reduced the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist to 3. The latter, a unique technique of the Reikage lineage of the Hidden Mist village, also falls into this category. Kakashi's Reikiri and the Four Tails Old Murasaki's Melting Release Chakra mode also fall into this category, possessing the same physical enhancement effects. Anything related to ninjutsu is considered a difficult technique. So, if lightning release can be developed, why not fire release? This again raises the question of the body's endurance. Simply put, the development of ninjutsu relies on increasing the metabolic rate of the ninja cells. Lightning release stimulates the body like a shot of adrenaline. While it boosts performance, it also has side effects, albeit within acceptable limits. Fire release, due to its high temperature, can directly scorch cells during the stimulation process, making it unnecessary to develop it. Not incinerating oneself is a blessing. The Four Tails Jinchuriki, Shiro, was able to develop the Molten Release Chakra mode because he was the Four Tails Jinchuriki. His Molten Release Chakra mode is more like forming a tail beast code outside the body. The Uchiha clan, known for playing with fire, has copied countless ninjutsu, surpassing even the second Hokage in terms of their stockpile of basic ninjutsu. They naturally studied this powerful ninjutsu. Through the meticulous observation of the Sharingan, they were able to meticulously control fire attribute chakra, burning cells and extracting strength. This resulted in this A-rank ninjutsu, which became the core of this S-rank forbidden technique. However, due to the inherently dangerous nature of this technique, the duration of control is extremely brief. The caster endures the pain and cost of blazing flames, in exchange for an uncontrollable, short-lived strike. Once used, they incinerate themselves. Physically, I'm literally burned out. Over time, this technique became useless, shelved. Those who could use it despised its meager power, believing a casual slash from a Gundam would achieve the same effect. Those who couldn't afford a Gundam but wanted to learn it first had to consider whether they had the skills to master this technique. Playing with fire is extremely dangerous. Without the supervision of a veteran practitioner, practicing it could easily lead to incineration. Secondly, whether such a cost, a fatal strike, was worth the price. Such horrific side effects would be difficult for even an Uchiha with his energy to bear. Uchiha Setsuna, the great elder of the Uchiha clan, used this forbidden technique, unsheltered a 40-meter-long flaming sword, and simply struck it a few times. Even now, the old man's fate hangs in the balance. Uchiha Chi, however, glanced at the scroll in his hand and swallowed hard. After thoroughly reading the description of this technique, he could barely contain his excitement, his breathing quickening. His expression was like that of a Pantsu cult member seeing the white bear Pantsu, the supreme Pantsu god. His eyes glowed. This. Isn't this exactly what Uchiha Chi needs most? Uchiha Setsuna still has I's energy to use, which he can recycle and rekindle after burning. But Uchiha Chi, on the other hand, has neither Izanagi nor the three Magatama Sharingan needed to wield it. One strike, and he'd be utterly dead. This wave, would be a blazing inferno. A complete funeral procession, skipping all the steps and heading straight to the crematorium, even carrying the crematorium with him. The cremation speed is comparable to the speed of light. Damn, Uchiha Chi doesn't even know how he can lose. Please tell me, how can I lose? Axe on hips, full of arrogance, JPG, please read, recommend, and save this. Bang, bang, bang. This involves a very crucial secondary setting, so the explanation is a little complicated. Now let's start to push the plot. Thanks to the puppeteer for the reward, thanks to Yanmu for the 2 monthly tickets, and thanks to Ji Hongji and the pen performing life and death for the 1 monthly ticket. Thanks to all the godfathers. Chapter 38, Practicing Forbidden Techniques, Following the Light. Half an hour later, on a massive rock, Uchiha Chi memorized the scroll's contents. Without hesitation, he formed hand seals and unleashed a massive fireball, destroying the scroll on the spot. He then settled into a cross-legged position. Closing his eyes, he gradually focused his attention on his breathing. With each inhale and exhale, the whistling of the early spring wind faded. Gradually, the thumping of his heart grew louder, like thunder. A full moon loomed behind him, and the expanse of open country stretched to the horizon. Under the cold, icy light, Uchiha Chi suddenly opened his eyes. Within his crimson eyes, the pitch-black Magatama slowly shifted, and everything before him seemed to have been buffered. He stared intently at his chest. Through his Sharingan, a wisp of fire attribute chakra, transformed in nature, erupted from his heart. In an instant, the blazing flames coursed through his body, making Uchiha Chi feel as if he were back in time with the 3 members of Kumagakure. The detonating tag erupted in flames, the flames searing his body and soul. Unlike then, now, the surging power was completely contained within this body, like a depleted uranium bomb compressed to the limit, poised to explode in a mushroom cloud. His body suddenly emitted a sizzling, oily sound as it seared the flames. A sharp, heart-wrenching pain suddenly gripped his heart. Uchiha Chi's pupils shrank, and he immediately stopped the chakra supply. A subtitle flickered before his eyes: "You have mastered fire style, chakra mode, beginner, extremely dangerous." His breath swelled, and a wave of fear washed over him. If he hadn't mastered the masterful shuriken manipulation techniques of the Great Elder, Uchiha Setsuna, and possessed such a high level of control over his body that he could instantly sense something was wrong and stop, he would have been dead. Furthermore, dying like this could only be considered suicide. As expected, it's very dangerous. Furthermore, the process is irreversible. Once fully ignited, chakra will burn chakra, triggering a chain reaction similar to a nuclear explosion. In that case, there's no turning back. Uchiha Chi, still trembling, felt the heart-wrenching pain recede. He exhaled a long, condensed stream of white air, propped himself up, and with a thought, opened his dashboard. Employee, Uchiha Chi. Title, Heaven Falling Strong Man. Talents, Heart of Steel, SSS, Sharingan, Single Magatama, B+, Combat Intuition, Beginner, S. Skills, Uchiha Style, Silk Shuriken Manipulation Jutsu, Mastery, S. Super Death Battle Barrier, Mastery, S. Fire Style, Great Fireball Jutsu, Beginner, C. Fire Style, Phoenix Fire Jutsu, Proficient, C. Fire Style, Phoenix Sparkle Red, Mastery, B. Fire Style, Dragon Fire Jutsu, Beginner, C. Wind Style, Sky Slashing Extreme Wave, Mastery, B. 3-Body Jutsu, Rope Escape Jutsu, Basic Taijutsu, Proficient, Special Skill, Fire Style, Chakra Mode, Beginner, A. Extremely Dangerous, Heart's Strength Stacked, Expandable, Insurance Status, Paid. Looking at the words Fire Style, Chakra Mode fixed on the panel, Uchiha Chi's heart was finally at peace. Besides this core forbidden technique, the scroll also contained a sword technique called Dancing of the Sun, but it seemed to require a weapon crafted from chakra metal. Taken alone, this sword technique is only considered a B rank 1. However, when combined with the Sharingan, Jinjutsu, chakra metal ninja swordsmanship, and fire style chakra mode, it can be combined into the ultimate S rank forbidden sword technique. In the original novel, Uchiha Shisui mastered this sword technique, but perhaps because Uchiha Setsuna was already dead by then, Shisui ultimately failed to master the core fire style chakra mode. However, for Shisui, who could drive a Gundam, This didn't matter much. Uchiha raised his head slightly, gazing at the full moon in the sky. He took a deep breath, his gaze growing firm. Now that all was prepared, all that remained was to set off for the evil god cult's headquarters and wreak havoc. But, just then, "Are you planning to go alone like this?" A familiar voice suddenly boomed from behind, its tone tinged with questioning anger. "You want to say nice things and then rush off to die alone, Uchiha? Who's the one running away? Do you want your ideals turned in this remote corner of the land of hot springs, huh? Answer me." Uchiha whipped his head around, only to see a childish fist barreling toward his face. His instinctive battle instincts forced him to turn his head, dodging the blow. Then he saw Hiden's furious face behind the fist. His eyes faltered for a moment, his guard lowered. Seizing this opportunity, Hiden leaped to his feet, grasping the bandage around Uchiha's neck with both hands, and shoved him hard against a nearby boulder. Bang! His back collided with a boulder with a dull thud. Fidoin's eyes were red as he angrily shouted, "Asshole, talk to me, you!" Uchiha was stunned. He had never expected that when he told Fidoin to go back home and stay home, the little brother would not listen at all. In less than an hour, he caught up with him again. He even looked like he was going to beat up his big brother. "What do you mean by you? I'm really annoyed." "That's enough, Uchiha. Without me leading the way, can you find the headquarters of the evil god cult?" After Fidoin's reminder, Uchiha couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He immediately thought of a serious question. "Yes, where's the headquarters of the evil god cult?" Uchiha frowned, his body trembling. With one hand, he lifted Fidoin and placed him in his rightful place as his younger brother. Then, his face darkened and he sternly rebuked, "Stop messing around, Fidoin. Even without you, I could still find the location of their headquarters by capturing a member of the evil god cult and torturing him." Uchiha shook his head and spoke righteously, "But you've arrived just in time. Just tell me the location of the evil god cult's headquarters, and your mission will be accomplished. I'll grudgingly give you credit for the destruction of the evil god cult. That way, when you return home, you can brag to the other ninjas about fighting alongside Uchiha, the ruler of the world. Well, do you think you've earned a lot?" Fidoin blinked at the righteous Uchiha, his eyes filled with shock. As if he'd seen something strange. How could such a shameless person exist in the world? He didn't know, but he actually tried to use this childlike trick to extract information from him? Where had that good brother image of him counseling me just an hour ago gone? Give me back the gratitude I felt. "You bastard!" Hiden gritted his teeth, violently pulling Uchiha's hand away. With a cold snort, he turned and said stubbornly, "I'm going with you, Tisk." Uchiha felt a sudden headache. "Why wouldn't you listen, boy?" At that moment, he felt how Uchiha Setsuna had felt when he'd refused to accept the mission. There was a mountain of swords and a sea of fire ahead, and this kid had no insurance, so what was he going to do? Hiden shook his head, his face determined. "I must go with you, Uchiha. I want to see you. I must see it with my own eyes. Do you have what it takes to become my evil god?" Hiden took a deep breath, his eyes determined. The light that Uchiha had shattered seemed to rise brightly again in his eyes. "Just like you said, isn't it? All I want is the evil god I need. Whether it's you or that guy from the evil god cult, it doesn't matter. I will end the chaos in the land of hot water, drive out all the great ninjas from this land, and become the next demigod of the ninja world. This is my ninja way." Hiden suddenly stopped talking, looking at Uchiha with a radiant look. "Then first, let's eliminate this cancer of the evil god cult." Uchiha took a deep breath and looked at Hiden in silence for a moment. Although a tiny touch of emotion rose in his heart, his rational mind told him that if Hiden went to the evil god cult headquarters, history would likely repeat itself. Or even worse. Just as he was about to refuse Hiden, a voice as sweet as a silver bell suddenly rang out from behind him. "Then follow me, Hiden, I promised you on his behalf." Uchiha was startled and turned his head. He saw a girl with clear green eyes, her arms folded across her chest, her figure slender. She stood in the moonlight, a faint smile on her lips like a flower in full bloom in spring. Then, she slowly opened her cherry lips and said, "And I want to go too. Please read, collect, and recommend." Bang bang bang. Chapter 39, Team Formation, Tough Fight Against Genin. Upon hearing Madarumi say she was going to, Uchiha was stunned. Though he was conceited, he wasn't foolish. He naturally didn't assume that Madarumi, a prodigy from the Hidden Mist village, would be like his younger brother, Hiden, captivated by his swagger and impulsively wanting to go along. At this time, the Hidden Mist Village was engaged in a small-scale war with the Hidden Mist Village, which had lost its third Kazekage. It was also during this time that Raza and Hakura achieved their feats in the competition for the fourth Kazekage. Furthermore, the Hidden Mist Village, with its deep hatred for the Hidden Mist Village, was about to cross the sea and attack the Hidden Mist Village, precipitating the Battle of Midorima Reef and Iwagakure, a battle that nearly silenced the Hidden Mist Village during the Third Shinobi World War. Strangely, during this period of uncertainty, Madarumi, a prodigy from the Hidden Mist Village, was not in the village or on the battlefield. Instead, she appeared incognito in the land of hot springs. Furthermore, she seemed to have her sights set on the evil god cult, hoping to gain something from it. Uchiha frowned slightly as he glanced at Terumi Mei. He sensed a subtle undercurrent beneath the already chaotic land of hot water. Facing Uchiha's gaze, Terumi Mei blushed slightly and quickly turned her head away, explaining, "What are you looking at? Don't get me wrong, I've been targeting the evil god cult for longer than you have, and I have goals I must accomplish." Terumi Mei's tone darkened, a solemn hue glimmering in her emerald eyes. "I must find someone. If I don't find him, my hometown might be in danger." Uchiha pondered for a moment, but due to incomplete intelligence, he couldn't yet determine who Terumi Mei was looking for. However, this matter was clearly complex, far beyond the grasp of a weak genin like him. Even Panzigazi couldn't handle it. And his little brother, Hidden, was like a sticky candy, impossible to shake off. With Terumi Mei present, perhaps he could help keep an eye on things. Uchiha possessed a super death battle barrier, unafraid that Madarumi would interfere with his fight. All he had to do was shout, "Welcome to the world of men," then, with a slap on the ground, he'd shove his teammates aside and face the enemy alone. As the enemy stared in horror, he'd unleash the forbidden fire-style chakra mode. Even a great god couldn't save him. Uchiha thought merrily, replaying the scenario in his mind. But no matter how he looked at it, it was a dead end. With this thought in mind, Uchiha sized the two men up and down before nodding helplessly. "Alright, let's go together then." Hidden and Madarumi exchanged a glance, each unable to suppress a smile. But then, a muffled voice called out from behind, "Since you're all going, why not count me in too?" The three glanced in surprise, and Hidden exclaimed, "Mr. Shenin." The voice that had spoken was none other than Shenin, who had remained silent, as if he hadn't even existed. "I am also a medical ninja, so I should be able to play a role." Shenin, wearing a brown hood, a light yellow robe, and a large red dot on his head, walked slowly from behind, his eyes calm and his tone steady. Uchiha immediately narrowed his eyes and looked at Shenin with a slightly cold look. This leader of the Sky Ninja Village, who disguised himself as a traveling doctor in the ninja world, had been following them, and it was obvious that he had ulterior motives. As a doctor, there was no reason for him to be driven away by the people of the village, but he still followed the three people out, or to be more precise, he followed Feeden out. There was no calculation in this, and Uchiha would never believe it. "I'm sorry, Mr. Shenin. I am very grateful for your healing of my injuries, but the evil god cult is not a peaceful place. For your safety, you'd better stay." Uchiha decisively refused the other party. "Uchiha, right." Shenin frowned slightly and let out a breath. "You don't need to be so cautious. We have no grudges, and I pose no threat to you." He glanced at Terumi Mei beside him and spoke calmly, "Just like this little girl, I have things I must accomplish. All I need is some data to verify my results. Whatever you do, I won't intervene. I'll just watch from the side. If necessary, I can even help you heal your injuries, so there's no need to be so wary of me." Finally, Shenin spoke calmly, his tone a hint of threat, and said in a deep voice, "Besides, if I want to follow, you alone can't stop me. Want to try?" Shenin not only despises you, but also attempts to provoke you. Uchiha's eyes suddenly became stern. Without another word, he reached out and snatched Terumi Mei's ninja tool bag from her waist. Then he drew out a kunai and swung it directly at Shenin's face. Then, he extended his leg and swept it, sending a cloud of dust careening towards Shenin. Using the dust as cover, Uchiha ducked low and swerved sideways, his kunai swirling into a blade flower between his fingers. Uchiha grasped the dazzling yet icy flower in his backhand and fiercely drove it into Shenin's temple. The kunai, the dust, and the flank attack descended almost simultaneously. Even a common jounin would barely have time to react to such a rapid attack. A crisis unfolded in an instant. Hiden and Madarumi were stunned, their eyes filled with horror. They had never expected Uchiha Chi to so decisively attack the doctor who had healed him. However, facing such a combined attack, Shinin simply shook his head, and a surge of air erupted from his body. Forbidden technique, flesh transformation. Forbidden technique, 8 gates of ninjutsu, 6th gate of the Eightfold Path, open. Then, he tilted his head, dodging the kunai from above, raised his right hand, and snapped his fingers. Bang! A sonic boom erupted from his fingertips. A Force 8 gale lashed out in front of him. Uchiha Chi felt like he'd been struck by a sledgehammer, sending him flying backwards. A subtitle flashed before his eyes. Dang, you bravely challenged the Sky Ninja Village leader, Shinin. You gain a random skill from him, forbidden technique, flesh transformation, mastered, incomplete, your heart steel level has increased. Bang! 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 Uchiha Chi bounced against the ground several times, creating a long furrow. Puff! Wow, he coughed up a mouthful of blood, feeling his internal organs dislocated. Compared to the current top ninja warriors, he was still far too immature. However, before Uchiha Chi could react, a massive hand landed on his chest, illuminating with a shimmering green light. It slowly reset the organs dislocated by Shinin's blow, healing the ruptured wound. This was the Palm Immortal technique, a highly advanced medical ninjutsu. Even Uchiha Chi couldn't handle it. Uncle, if you want to hit me, just slap me to death, okay? Beating me and then treating me, what's the point? He looked at Shinin, who remained calm, as if nothing had happened, and asked, frustrated, why? Shinin raised an eyebrow slightly. Why didn't you kill me? Why did you keep saving me? Uchiha Chi stared at him, a cold look in his eyes. Would you care if an ant punched you? Shinin shook his head. Then, he sighed and spoke in a slightly lower voice. If I had to say why, it's probably because seeing you reminds me of the past. I also have a home I want to return to, but can't. Really? Uchiha Chi knew he was referring to the Sky Ninja Village, destroyed by Konoha. It was precisely because of the destruction of his home and country that this man was so obsessed with gathering strength and seeking revenge against Konoha. Uchiha Chi let out more breath and slapped Shinin's hand away, stopping him from continuing his treatment. Then, he glared at the other man with a cruel smile. I believe you for now, but if you dare attack them from behind, I will make you die miserably. Trust me, I mean what I say. Forbidden technique, flesh regeneration. This technique, similar to Tsunade's 100 healings mode, continuously heals injuries sustained. However, unlike the Yin Seal, which consumes chakra, this technique consumes vitality. Hence, its classification as a forbidden technique. With this technique, combined with fire style, chakra mode, Uchiha Chi estimated it would give him an extra 5 seconds of fighting time. 5 seconds, with this near-divine power, would be enough to pierce the heavenly Angkor fortress, the incomplete Zero-Tail creation, and even Shinin himself. Shinin said nothing, taking it as a threat from Uchiha Chi. Please bookmark, recommend, and read again. Bang bang bang. Thank you all for your monthly votes and recommendations. Chapter 40 Bounty Hunter, the ceremony begins. Uchiha Chi let out more breath and stood up. He looked around at the 3 teammates who were about to set off together. He just felt a little bit dry. There was Madarumi, the genius of the Hidden Mist Village, who possessed dual bloodlines and went by the alias Tsukumitayame. There was Shinin, the villain behind the scenes of the Sky Ninja Village, who traveled the ninja world in secret and practiced medicine. There was also Fiden, a future member of the Akatsuki organization and the current wild cub form of the Tang Ninja. This lineup made people scratch their heads no matter how they looked at it. Why did they gather together? Forget it, let's go. The target is the headquarters of the evil god. Fiden, lead the way. At the same time, in the underground square of the headquarters of the evil god not far from Tangayan City, the evil god cult's bishop watched the scene before him with indifference. He watched as his followers dragged terrified civilians from the land of hot springs, bound them to crosses, piled firewood at their feet, and, with a grim smile, pulled awls, chains, and nails from a rack hung with torture instruments, preparing for the grand evil god ritual that was about to begin. Suddenly, he felt a sense of absurdity and boredom. He turned around and pulled out a necklace bearing the evil god cult symbol from his bosom. He stared at it for a long, dazed moment, until a black-robed evil god cult leader half-knelt behind him and anxiously reported, Bishop, the 3 elite soldiers we sent to retrieve the child have been killed. Kill them, so be it, the bishop said with indifference, his face impassive, as if he were accustomed to such incidents. He turned his head and glanced at the believers with a pair of lavender eyes, then said lightly, "This country is like this, there are deaths everywhere, and chaos everywhere. Tang ninja, Akuro ninja, samurai, civilians, nobles, even daimyo, will be killed inexplicably one day. Don't you recognize this tragic reality and meaningless era?" "But, Bishop," the leader raised his head slightly and asked, "what about the child needed for the ceremony?" The bishop looked at the darkness on the side and said lightly, "Professional matters should be left to professionals." A bald man with a thick beard stepped out of the darkness with a smile on his face. "The bishop is right. Our underground money exchange was born for this: kidnapping, extortion, bounty, intelligence, assassination. Even if you want to become a noble in this country tomorrow, as long as you can pay the price, we will serve you wholeheartedly." The bishop closed his eyes and asked, "How long will it take to bring the person here?" The bald man smiled slightly, with a sincere face. "Rest assured, we immediately tortured the villagers of that village and have already determined the whereabouts of the man who killed your cult member and the child. This is a big deal. Our most elite bounty hunters have already set out and will return within half a day. We can definitely bring back the child named Hidden Well. That's all," the bishop said with a waning smile. "Jinxie, take him down to collect the deposit." The evil god cult member named Jinxie nodded in realization, then couldn't help but ask, "Bishop, what if the man who kidnapped Hidden comes back to kill us?" The bishop pinched the necklace and pressed it against his forehead. A calm, emotionless voice said, "Someone will take care of it. Jinxie, we are just an ordinary church that believes in God. Don't always rely on violence to solve problems." As soon as he finished speaking, not far away, a cultist, clutching an iron nail, grinned and backhandedly pierced an eyeball. A shrill scream echoed from the densely packed crosses behind him. This scene, one after another, made even the bald man from the underground gold exchange, accustomed to the darkness of the ninja world, freeze his smile. What a fucking ordinary church. Is this how your ordinary church worships? Ho, you said this is the headquarters of the evil god cult? Are you sure this isn't the palace of the daimyo of the land of hot springs? On a cliff, Uchiha gazed down at the massive castle perched on the hill below, a touch surprised. If Hidden hadn't explicitly told him this was the headquarters of the evil god cult, he would have mistaken it for the domain of some noble from the land of hot springs. It's pretty much the same, actually. This place was built by our Unokuni village for a noble from the Unokuni. You know, the Unokuni ninjas rarely get any good missions. They're like those declining samurai, practically serving as private soldiers for the Unokuni daimyo and nobles, Hidden explained, pointing to the ancient castle below. Then he shook his head. But there's a difference. Uchiha followed his gaze. Beyond the magnificent castle below lay a stretch of shabby shacks stretching for nearly 10 miles. Dense crowds of Unokuni refugees huddled there, huddled in sheltered corners, legs hugged, unable to sleep. It looked like a massive refugee settlement. The night was dark, the sky dim. The four-person team had been traveling for 3 hours, and by that time, it should be almost dawn. However, in early spring, the days were short and the nights long, so there was still some time before daybreak. What should we do? Hidden asked, tilting his head. As if concerned, he continued, I came here once when I was under the guidance of the evil god cult. Don't underestimate this place. The security here is very tight, especially along the path to the cave near the evil god cult's underground headquarters. There's a guard every 10 steps, plus, the evil god cult has recruited a large number of samurai and refugees as spies. Sneaking in through the refugee camp near the city gate without alerting those inside is a bit unrealistic. Besides, it's hard to say how many ninja forces the evil god cult actually has. Hidden wasn't even a genin yet, and he couldn't sense ninjutsu. He looked at everyone as normal. It was only when he saw Uchiha, covered in wounds and wearing a Konoha dog tag, that he confirmed he was a ninja. It was normal that he couldn't get any further information. Uchiha nodded and stroked his chin. But inside, he was secretly delighted. As a true tough guy, he naturally wanted to make as much noise as possible when carrying out an assassination. As long as he killed every enemy he saw, no one would know I was here. Sunglasses pushed up, gold teeth bared JPG. So, Uchiha turned his head and said with a determined look, I'll distract the enemy while you sneak in and open the city gate. Then, we'll charge straight in. Whoever stands in our way will be killed, and whoever stands in our way will be killed. After we've reached the underground cave, I'll seal the gate with a barrier to cut off their reinforcements. Well, isn't the plan perfect? Clearly. This plan didn't sit well with his teammates. Are you a fool? Terumi Mei couldn't help but slash at Uchiha's forehead with a knife, angrily saying, "We're ninjas. We're ninjas. Do you think this is a Kaijin performance?" Then, Terumi Mei pointed to the cliff below and the castle below, connecting them with two slender fingers. "We can descend from this cliff to the city wall. It's a bit high, but we have the ability to climb trees. After we've scouted the city wall, we can climb down. Try to avoid attracting too much attention." Terumi Mei's statement was immediately agreed by the other two. But Uchiha shook his head. "You've overlooked an important point. We can climb down. Forget climbing, we can even run down the cliff." But, Uchiha patted his younger brother on the shoulder, grinning cheerfully. "This kid probably doesn't know how to walk on trees or water yet." Uchiha glanced at Hidden, raised an eyebrow, and asked, "What should we do? Should we leave him here?" Thanks to Chi Yen, Mise Henley, and book friend 2016122918485143 for the monthly ticket. Thanks to book friend 2024012118070196 and I am another person for the reward. Thank you all for your recommendation votes. New books tend to die easily, so please be sure to read them if you like them. Bang bang bang. Chapter 41, Love at a Corner, Kokuzu. "Hello. I'll kill you." Hidden was instantly enraged with impotence, for he truly couldn't tread on water or trees. Seeing this, Shannon, who had been silently watching from the sidelines, narrowed his eyes slightly and said calmly, "I don't need to fight, I can carry him down." Uchiha squinted his eyes, thinking that even running a marathon with him on his back wouldn't be a big deal, let alone carrying him down. However, letting Shannon carry Hidden down would be like throwing a meat bun at a dog. This guy had been eyeing Hidden to get something out of him, and while he was acting like he was being obedient and just watching, there was no telling what might happen if he was allowed to do so. "Let's scout the situation first." Uchiha shook his head, pointing to the city wall clinging to the cliff below. Then he turned to look at Hidden. "Also, Hidden, be prepared to stay here." Hidden remained silent. Madarumi nodded beside him and instructed, "Then I'll trouble you, Uchiha. From here, there's a tree halfway down. Hide there. With your Sharingan, you should be able to clearly see the defenses on the wall. Record every 15 minutes. After 3, we'll set off. We don't have much time. Daybreak is almost here." With that, Madarumi unsheathed her ninja tool bag from her slender waist and tossed it over. "I'm not a shuriken specialized ninja, so I don't have many tools. I only have 3 kunai, 10 shurikens, and 2 detonating tags. That's enough." Uchiha caught it, weighed it, and instantly determined how many tools were inside. He slung it around his waist. He stood at the edge of the cliff, glanced down, and estimated the drop of nearly 400 meters. The wind from below ripped the roots of Uchiha's hair from his forehead. A thin mist drifted beneath the shadow of the mountain wall, like the mouth of an abyss where a monster lurked. He smiled, and leaped as the 3 watched. Whoosh! Rapidly falling. Uchiha opened his Sharingan in mid-air and quickly spotted the tree that Terumi Mei had mentioned. He pulled out a bandage from his body, folded it, and tied it to the end of his kunai, hurling it downward. The kunai, with a bandage, tangled around the tree trunk. Uchiha twirled the bandage, deflecting his descent and gently landing on the tree. Then, he carefully observed the city walls, which were now visible below. As Hidden had said, the castle was heavily guarded. Night passed quietly, and 2/4 of an hour passed quickly. Uchiha climbed the cliff face using both hands and feet. Compared to running up the cliff face, this method conserved more chakra. As Uchiha emerged from the cliff edge, Madarumi looked at him nervously and asked, "What's the situation?" Reporting to the commander, Uchiha grinned and briefly summarized the intelligence he had gathered. "A bunch of small fry, no big deal. There are 6 genin with chakra reaction, patrolling in 2 shifts. Most of them are guarding the entrance to the underground cave, and there are 2 on the city wall, climbing the cliff face." Uchiha briefly analyzed, "If we kill one, we'll have at least 10 minutes to rush underground, and then..." But before he could finish his words, Uchiha suddenly froze, looking past Madarumi to the back of her head. In the Sharingan's field of vision, a huge ball of light with a terrifying chakra reaction was slowly approaching in the darkness. "What then?" Madarumi frowned. Uchiha's mouth suddenly felt dry, and he pursed his lips, his gaze gradually fixed. "Well, I saw a giant crocodile. Crocodile. Maid Arumi was stunned, wondering if this little man was afraid of such seafood. She immediately said, speechless, don't be afraid. See, the crocodile would be afraid of you too, and even more so than you, Tisk. Uchiha smacked his lips, a hand quietly resting on the ninja tool bag at his waist. That's hard to say. Seeing Uchiha's action, the three of them stared at him, then followed his gaze, looking sideways into the thick darkness behind. A steady sound of footsteps gradually reached the dense forest beyond the cliff. Under the moonlight, a tall man with a pair of luminous green eyes, wearing a black mask and a forehead protector worn by the Takinin village rebels, and a black robe covering his body, approached slowly. Uchiha's heart sank at the sight of the man's attire. This man was none other than Kakuzu, the future chief financial officer of the Akatsuki organization, and currently a high-ranking thug in the ninja world's underground gold exchange, possessing the secret technique Earth's Grudge. Kakuzu, a cage-level warrior, possessed the power of the future. Trampling, his feet crushed the dust, stirring up a gray mist. Kakuzu's gaze was cold and indifferent as he slowly approached. It took me a while to find you, but I didn't expect you to find your way back. He scanned the faces of the four men, pausing briefly at Shinin, frowning. He then shifted his gaze to Hiden, standing behind the three. He muttered, Tisk, what a hassle, this little money isn't enough. Let's get more money when we get back. With that, Kakuzu suddenly stepped forward, his gaze icy as he shouted, hand over that kid behind you, or else, death. As the words fell, a terrifying murderous aura suddenly emanated from Kakuzu. Under this terrifying threat, both Uchiha and Terumi couldn't help but tremble and step back. Even the young Hiden, facing his future best partner, saw his pupils shrink to the extreme, his body trembling unconsciously, and he unconsciously took several steps back. It wasn't until he stepped on the edge of a cliff that he came to his senses. Who is this? Hiden's face was filled with fear. He had never seen a master of this level, someone who could shock someone into unconsciousness and trembling with murderous aura alone. Meanwhile, Shinin didn't move at all. Kakuzu's murderous aura felt like a gentle breeze to him. Still, he retreated, even 7 or 8 steps at a time, keeping a distance from the 3 team members. He looked like, fight all you want, I'll just watch. Takigakure Village S-rank renegade ninja, the ninja world's top bounty hunter, Kakuzu. Terumi's pupils suddenly constricted, clearly recognizing him. She pulled a kunai from the zip tie on her trouser leg, her palms already forming the C seal, ready for battle. Uchiha stared solemnly at Kakuzu, who was coming for Hiden. A wave of absurdity washed over him. The butterfly effect he had unleashed was already stirring up a storm. The once partnered immortal duo had now become enemies. And Uchiha was actually going to fight Kakuzu to protect Hiden's brain. Was this Plants vs. Zombies? After a moment of astonishment, Uchiha immediately turned around, his eyes fierce, and pointed at the cliff, shouting at Hiden, Hiden, jump, what did you say? Please read, recommend, and bookmark this. Thank you gentlemen for your recommendations and monthly tickets, and thank you beautiful Uchiha and me for the 500-point reward. Bang, bang, bang. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, The Team's First Battle. The oppressive force of the cage-level strong man. Hiden's face was filled with shock, and he looked up at Uchiha in surprise. He thought, Big brother, have you fed the bond between us to the dogs? Down here, there's a fucking 400-meter cliff. You're just going to let me jump like that? Without waiting for Hiden's expression to change, Uchiha's glare turned fierce, and he launched a flying kick at Hiden's butt, sending him careening off the edge of the cliff. Fuck you, Uchiha. Beep. Beep. Hiden covered his butt and cursed, falling off the cliff with a long string of silenced words. Soon, there was no sound at all. Uchiha then turned around, and met Maidarumi's confused but shocked gaze. He turned to Kakuzu and smiled brightly. Mr. Kakuzu, look, the guy's gone now, your mission is complete. Actually, I brought this brat here to kill him right here, since we share the same goal, I don't mind helping you a little. Uchiha paused, spreading his hands. Here, look, we have no past or present animosity. Since it's settled, Why don't you just pretend you never met us today and go your separate ways? Kakuzu was also taken aback by Uchiha Chi's bold move. The moment Hidden fell off the cliff, his deep green eyes widened involuntarily, and he stared at Uchiha Chi for a long moment. He wondered what kind of guy he was. What grudge did he have against that brat? That kick was too decisive, wasn't it? But then, after hearing Uchiha Chi's words, Kakuzu's face darkened, a cloud covering his face. Who told you to meddle in my business? Kakuzu gritted his teeth, his eyes cold, and he looked at Uchiha Chi with a chilling look. My mission is to bring that brat back alive. What? Upon hearing this, Uchiha Chi frowned slightly, a hint of ruthlessness flickering in his eyes. But beneath the surface, he was trembling all over, his face pale. He shivered, waving his hands repeatedly to explain. I really don't know anything about this, sir. Look, everyone's dead. However, Kakuzu, furious at having lost such a large sum of money for no apparent reason, refused to listen to Uchiha Chi's words. He raised his right hand, his eyes flashing with a bone-chilling coldness, and spread his palm flat. Then as soon as he finished speaking, the stitches on Kakuzu's palm gradually opened, and fine threads of earth resentment emerged from them. Then, he twisted his waist and retreated, suddenly swung his hand. Suddenly, his right hand stretched out, piercing the air. In an instant, it spanned over 10 meters and shot towards Uchiha Chi. This was the secret technique, earth resentment. It was a dark tentacle that hid life beneath the battlefield, waiting to move. The tentacles were composed of countless fine threads, so fine that they could even suture human blood vessels and meridians. The palm smashed through the air, making Uchiha Chi envious. If he had such power, he wouldn't have to buy a ridiculously expensive ninja thread in the future. However, looking at the palm smashing towards him and the tough tentacles connected to it, Uchiha Chi narrowed his eyes slightly. When it comes to playing with thread, the Uchiha are the real experts. He backhandedly swung out a kunai, and silently, his black pupils turned scarlet. What are you standing there for? At the side, seeing Uchiha Chi motionless, Madarumi frowned slightly, twisted her feet, and swung out the water knife that had already formed in her hand. Suddenly, the water fang blade arced and swirled, slashing at the tentacles behind Kakuzu's palm. The spiraling pressure of the blade sliced through the tentacles, sending tiny water droplets flying everywhere. Surprisingly, it only nicked a few tentacles, quickly replaced by an endless stream of them. Watching the water blade transform into a kunai and fall helplessly, Terumime's gaze narrowed. So tough. These tentacles possess a toughness that even the water fang blade can't cut through. This technique is the only one I can use. She frowned and positioned herself in front of Uchiha Chi, her feet planted on the ground, shoulder width apart. Then, she formed hand seals, Suhai Yinjo Zu. Dissolution style, dissolving monsters. Terumime touched her fingers together, forming the U seal and taking a deep breath. Then, her lips parted. A dissolution technique, resembling magma and possessing a terrifying temperature capable of dissolving even Susanoo, erupted from Terumime's mouth. Huh? What the hell? Kakuzu's pupils shrank slightly, his heart instinctively pounding at the sight of the thing Madarumi had spewed out. He immediately parted a portion of his resentful tentacles to block it, preventing the melting release from destroying his outstretched hand. The magma fell upon the tentacles, crushing them with a devastating force, instantly melting them all. Sizzle, sizzle, the scene resembled hot oil poured over cheese, with puffs of smoke and steam rising. Retracting his hand, Kakuzu narrowed his eyes slightly, a hint of seriousness in his gaze. He glanced at Uchiha Chi and Madarumi, nodding as if reassessing his assessment. Sharingan, and melting release bloodline. Not bad, that might help me recover some of my losses. I'll do my best to keep your bodies intact, so, die in peace. As soon as he finished speaking, a subtitle flashed before Uchiha Chi. Kakuzu thinks you're worth a small fortune. Upon hearing Kakuzu's dismissive words, Madarumi's face suddenly turned cold. He immediately retorted coldly, your tentacles are useless to me. If you continue, I'll kill you. Kakuzu shook his head slightly, his calm, dark green eyes observing the two men indifferently. He twisted his neck, causing a flutter beneath his black robe. Then, he asked calmly, how will you counter this move, sir? With that, Kakuzu pulled back his robe with both hands, revealing the blue striped bird head mask on his chest. The mask's vast, black maw opened, sucking in all the surrounding vegetation, insects, and rocks, condensing into a squeaking, whistling ball of wind. Bang! A shrieking roar erupted. Wind style, suppression. This jutsu, arguably the most powerful of all Hokage's conventional forms, was revealed before the two team members. The cutting power of wind style, suppression's wind bullets pushed the river of molten lava spewed by Madarumi back up, piercing through it in one swoop. After the lava exploded, it whizzed past Madarumi's ear, hurtling 500 meters straight. It crashed fiercely into the opposite mountain. Boom! A raging storm. Huge rubble rained down, and below, the screams and howls of the U-Kingdom refugees echoed. The clamor instantly lit up the silent night. Madarumi's eyes widened, her face frozen, her mind blank. Blood, ruptured by the sonic boom, still trickled down her eardrum. Ah, I almost killed him. That was too weak. Should we try another method? Kokuzu exhaled, frowning in embarrassment. He clasped his hands together, and the mask on his chest climbed up his shoulders, replacing it with another yellow-striped, dog-headed mask. He slowly walked towards the two of them, stomping. His feet crushed dust, rubble, molten earth, and the girl's pride, stirring up a gray mist that covered the sky. The next moment, a dense mass of earth grudge's tentacles erupted from Kokuzu's back, condensing into 8 enormous black lines. Like 8 pitch-black snake spears. Kokuzu's cold, indifferent voice slowly descended, naming the technique, secret technique, earth grudge mode. A bead of sweat fell on Madarumi's forehead, and she looked up in fear. Thanks to my godfather, Eve JJ, and book friend 20200526185611343 for the 2 monthly passes. Thank you, everyone, for your recommendations. Please bookmark, recommend, and keep reading. This is truly important for newcomers. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 43, The Art of Gold escaped to make you super rich. Madarumi craned her neck, staring at Kokuzu's icy expression, the 8 massive black spears behind him, and countless pitch-black tentacles gradually filing her vision. The sky suddenly darkened, swallowing even the full moon's radiance. The next moment, murderous intent erupted. In a flash, thousands of tentacles surged down, threatening to completely engulf and crush the two of them. Die? 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 Terumi's eyes widened as she watched everything unfold before her. Sweat dripped from her anxiety, but she could find no way out. Tentacles lay before her, a cliff behind her. While she could suppress these black tentacles with her dissolve release, monster dissolving technique, she knew their sheer number and their constant regeneration meant she wouldn't be able to hold out for long, even if she exhausted her chakra. Furthermore, these tentacles weren't the key. Melting more would be useless. The key was the S-rank renegade ninja who had summoned them, Kokuzu. The masks he wore seemed to represent him, unleashing powerful jutsu without seals. The bluebird-headed mask represented wind style, suppression, the ultimate wind style jutsu. So, what did the yellow-striped dog-headed mask on his chest represent? Earth style? Or something else? How many other masks did he have? Besides unleashing jutsu, did these masks have other effects? Not good, not good, not good. Terumi Mei's heart was filled with utter panic. She watched the approaching tentacles with despair, her hands trembling as she formed hand seals, nearly causing a chakra outburst from mismatching them. Ultimately, Terumi Mei was just a little girl, the same age as Uchiha Chi. While gifted, she was still far from the future 5th Mizukage who would suppress the blood mist. Seeing the terrified look on Terumi Mei's face, Uchiha Chi, who had been standing behind Terumi Mei, stepped forward, grabbed her shoulders and protected her behind him. With a righteous look on his face, the tough guy always shows up at the last minute. Let me do it. What did you say? Terumi Mei looked at Uchiha Chi in shock. Is he a master? Has he been pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger? But Terumi Mei immediately remembered the scene not long ago when he was almost beaten to death by 3 members of the evil god cult. Her face twisted, and she grabbed Uchiha Chi's belt and pulled it back, anxiously wanting to kick the guy in the ass. Hurry up, you can't be his opponent. Uchiha Chi immediately showed a disdainful smile, thinking to himself, you little cutie, you don't understand what a tough guy dropped from the sky is. With this thought, facing the overwhelming, surging swarm of tentacles, Uchiha Chi remained unfazed. He raised his hand, flashed his bankbook, and shouted with immense pride, I have money. Terumi Mei's breath hitched, her heart awestruck. You actually tried to bribe a heartless, cold-blooded, top-tier bounty hunter in the ninja world. Don't you know he can earn more money on a single sale than you'll ever make in your entire life? How could Kakuzu even consider your meager income? It's a joke. Terumi raged inwardly, wishing she could stuff Uchiha-Chi's head into his pants to gag him and then run away. However, as Uchiha-Chi's shout uttered, in an instant, the wind died down, the waves subsided, and an eerie silence descended upon the surroundings. The surging swarm of tentacles suddenly stopped, revealing Kakuzu behind them. He stared intently at Uchiha with his deep green eyes. His tone gradually grew reserved, even attentive. The corners of his mouth twitched visibly beneath his black mask, and then he slowly and coldly asked, "How much?" Terumi's breath hitched again, the breath she held in her chest nearly choking. She stared at Kakuzu with shock, a shock no less intense than when Uchiha had pulled out his bankbook and attempted a bribe. Mr. Kakuzu, where's your dignity as an S-rank rebel ninja and a cage-level powerhouse? And you're actually seriously asking this guy how much he'll give? Is there something wrong with these two people, or is there something wrong with me? Terumi suddenly realized she couldn't comprehend the world anymore. The oppressive atmosphere suddenly lightened. Uchiha grinned and laughed. He would never say that he was a poor guy. His 7-digit savings had been spent on buying ninja tools and detonating talismans. Now he had nothing but bandages and shorts. On the contrary, he showed a defiant expression with raised eyebrows looking down on everything, and slowly asked Kakuzu, "Mr. Kakuzu, have you heard of the gold release, super rich technique?" Hearing the words gold and super rich, Kakuzu couldn't help but widen his eyes slightly, and asked impatiently, "What kind of bloodline limit is that?" Uchiha smiled complacently, and said calmly and casually, "The so-called gold release is to use money to pave the way. It is a powerful ability that can solve 99% of the problems in life. I am not talented, but as a member of the super wealthy Uchiha clan, I have some understanding of this. Only last year, the clan allocated me a land deed in the core business district of Konoha, worth more than 1 million. Now, all my money is in this passbook, including real estate, shops and various fixed assets under my name, and you, my friend, Mr. Kakuzu, you just need to give me a way out." Uchiha raised the small green notebook between his fingers, a bright smile on his face. "These are all yours." Kakuzu swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the passbook in Uchiha hand. Just imagine how much money was in there. 1 million. No, the property in the heart of Konoha was worth at least 3 million, and then there were all the other things this kid mentioned. 8 million? Or 10 million? Kakuzu's breath hitched. That sounds good." Hearing this, Terumi also looked at the passbook in Uchiha hand in surprise. She wondered if this kid's hidden identity was Uchiha Itachi, the eldest son of the Uchiha clan. But that didn't make sense, the age didn't match. Could he be the illegitimate son of Uchiha Fugaku, the captain of the Konoha Guard? However, before Terumi could react, seeing Kakuzu's flaw, Uchiha's glare sharpened, his foot twisted, and he exerted force from his waist. He used the Uchiha Ryu silk manipulation shuriken jutsu, grasping his bankbook, and threw it backwards fiercely. The thin bankbook flew away like a smudged white line. Without time to see if Kakuzu chased after the bankbook, Uchiha turned around and grabbed Terumi's slender waist and knees, picked her up, and then with a fierce look in his eyes, rushed straight to the edge of the cliff and jumped down fiercely. Please collect, recommend, and read. The second round of recommended readers are in urgent need of readers. Please don't support the book, it will kill you. For those who support the book, please be sure to turn to the last page every day and support a young author with a reading data. This is really important to me. Bang bang bang. Chapter 44, Make physical training as good as gymnastics. What does it feel like to leap from a 400-meter cliff, holding a beautiful girl in your arms? The wind from below rippled the roots of his hair. Uchiha fought against the gust, straining his eyes to keep them open. His crimson eyes darted left and right, searching for a spot to step on, to cushion the impact. Terumi, in his arms, looked terrified. She instinctively grasped for whatever she could, one hand tugging at Uchiha's face, the other clutching the soft flesh at his waist. With that tug, Uchiha cried out in pain, quickly releasing one hand and yanking the hand twisting her face away. "Miss, stop shaking. You're blocking my view, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy," Terumi screamed, staring at the approaching ground. Even if they were ninjas, there was no way they could survive such a fall. "Brakes, calm down," Uchiha roared. "Listen. On the count of 1, I'll throw you out. Hold on to the cliff. If you can't, you'll die. Terumi-Mei looked back at the boy before her, desperately forcing herself to calm down. Calm down. She had to calm down. Ugh, how could she possibly calm down? This was a cliff jump. Why would I jump off a cliff with this guy? We'd known each other for less than a day. Even the flashy marriages and suicide for love stories in domineering CEO novels wouldn't dare to write something like this, okay? Just as Terumi-Mei was furious, Uchiha-Chi's eyes darkened. He drew out a kunai and thrust it fiercely into the cliff face. Puff, puff, puff. Rocks shattered, dust filled his eyes. Uchiha-Chi resisted the urge to rub his eyes and opened them angrily, his whites quickly bloodshot. The kunai lodged in the rock face slid downward, slowing his fall slightly. Uchiha-Chi mentally calculated the time. When the kunai finally got stuck in a crack in the rock, he pulled with one arm, a burst of chakra, exerting a force that threatened to rupture his muscles. One, he roared, using the fulcrum to swing Terumi-Mei upward. What? That's it, Terumi-Mei exclaimed. The next moment, she felt herself being flung upward, landing right where a tree growing on the cliff face happened to be. A bandage was tied to the trunk, with a kunai dangling from one end and Hidden dangling from the other. Hidden, who had been kicked off the cliff by Uchiha-Chi earlier, was surprisingly still alive. He dangled in midair, clutching a piece of bandage, struggling to climb upward with a terrified look on his face. He looked up and saw Terumi-Mei flying towards him. Hidden's face twisted, his eyes wide. Fuck you, don't come over here. Thankfully, Terumi-Mei was no ordinary ninja. After her surprise, she quickly recovered, maneuvering herself like a swift cat, landing gently on the tree trunk. The trunk barely swayed, and she even had enough strength to reach out and pull Hidden up. Elsewhere, Uchiha-Chi's kunai, wedged between the cracks and the cliff face, snapped with a crack. He continued his rapid descent. Seeing that the two members of his team were safe, his heart finally settled. He turned to look at the approaching ground. Uchiha-Chi quickly formed hand seals with his hands, then, facing the ground, launched into the opening position of a Kamehameha wave. And then, wind-style, sky-slashing extreme wave, a vast amount of chakra gathered in his palms, transforming into a massive wave of air pressure and ultrasonic waves that gushed towards the ground. A whoosh. The wind blew down, shaking the dense forest below the cliff. Birds started up, fluttering in the air. Using this force, Uchiha-Chi not only stopped his fall but was launched upward once more. Immediately, his Sharingan illuminated a brilliant crimson streak across the night sky. Like a professional gymnast, Uchiha-Chi executed a series of dazzling maneuvers in midair, including a series of one-arm 360-degree spins, a looping jump to touch his knees, a back-heeled somersault, and so on. Then, with a snap, he was embedded in the cliff face. Ouch! Nearby, Terumi and Hidden, perched on a tree trunk, watched Uchiha-Chi, secretly applauding. As expected of an Uchiha. Is this your meticulously planned escape route? Come to think of it, this is the first time I've heard a cliff cry like that. Terumi stepped sideways across the cliff face and snatched Uchiha-Chi from the precipice, exclaiming in admiration. PFFT, Uchiha-Chi spat out 2 mouthfuls of pebbles and wiped the blood from his forehead. He let out a long breath and gave Terumi a cocky grin. Basic exercises are pretty good. My eyes couldn't keep up with the last part, but I think the rest of the steps are a good 98. He then distributed his chakra across the soles of his feet and stood up from the steep cliff face. Looking up, he saw his younger brother, Hidden, below him, his face twisted like a shadowy creature. Ha ha ha, damn you, how dare you say that, I'll kill you. Do you know what would have happened if I hadn't grabbed this bandage when I fell? Hidden's eyes flashed with fury, and he clutched a bandage in his hand, paving it in front of Uchiha-Chi. His implication was, look, how dangerous is this? Is this how you're supposed to save people? Without a word, Uchiha-Chi plucked a bandage from Hidden's hand, removed the kunai at the end, and stuffed it back into his ninja tool bag. After a long pause, he spoke softly, you'd better grab this bandage or this tree. Hidden was stunned, wondering if Uchiha-Chi's words were more cryptic. By the way, was that passbook you gave Kokuzu real? Terumi suddenly paused, recalling the terrifying scene moments before. Of course it's fake. Uchiha-Chi turned and peered up from the cliff face, his gaze grave. There's only enough money for meal number 3. I don't think it's enough to buy our lives. Terumi was stunned, having touched upon a hidden area of her knowledge. She asked foolishly, meal number 3, What is that? As she finished her words, 8 massive, pitch-black tentacles suddenly burst forth from the cliff face. A single swing could crush the rock and tear the cliff face apart. It was a terrifying sight. The next moment, the tentacles pierced the cliff face, like a bow drawing an arrow. The bow quickly curved into a full moon, its tentacles tensing and squeaking. Suddenly, a figure with a face as black as the bottom of a pot shot straight down. Kokuzu, carrying 8 huge, pitch-black tentacles of resentment on his back, had a frighteningly dark complexion. His face was filled with the anger of being fooled, and he roared angrily, "You poor bastard, how dare you fool me, die?" Uchiha Chi was speechless for a moment, not knowing how to explain this to Darumi Mei. He could only laugh dryly, scratched his head, and looked up at the flying Kokuzu, his eyes gradually becoming serious. "Well, that's probably a set of scraping therapy that all men like." Then, he turned around, formed seals with his hands, smiled at Darumi Mei, and asked, "Are you ready? The real battle is about to begin." Chapter 45, Charging Towards Death, Gangman's Justice. Thanks to chakra, ninjas can fight in all sorts of extreme terrain. At this moment, Uchiha Chi stood on a nearly 90-degree vertical cliff face, his Sharingan filled with solemnity. Ahead, the dark night sky loomed. Kokuzu, in Earth Grudge mode, leaped towards him like an arrow. And behind him, a chasm of certain death awaited him. There was no retreat, only battle. The wind from the valley floor ruffled Uchiha Chi's hair. His gaze was calm as he formed hand seals with his hands. A faint crimson chakra swirled from his palms. Immediately, his 5 fingers landed on the cliff face, slamming fiercely. A massive circular cipher spell rapidly expanded, a pale crimson light shield locking onto Kokuzu before him, suddenly illuminating. Inheriting and surpassing Kumagokure's super death battle barrier, the domain unfolded. In mid-air, Kokuzu's eyes suddenly froze, subconsciously sensing something was amiss. This man before him was clearly as weak as a chicken, yet instead of fleeing, he dared to counterattack. He even threatened to trap him with a barrier. This baffled Kokuzu. What was he planning to do to a comrade in his 70s? A deception? A surprise attack? Kokuzu, known for his calm demeanor, his ability to think, and his high combat intelligence, which had enabled him to survive from the Warring States period to the present day, instantly conjured countless tactical arrangements, trying to analyze what the man across from him was up to. 8 tentacles suddenly plunged into the cliff face, halting the charge. However, it was too late. A pale red barrier had already enveloped both Uchiha Chi and him. When the dust settled, Kokuzu stared blankly at the barrier that only contained him and Uchiha Chi. His CPU was smoking, but he still couldn't figure out what this man was up to. Is this kid out of his mind? All his teammates have been quarantined. You, a single Magatama Sharingan Uchiha, what do you think you can do to fight us? Off to the side, after hearing Uchiha Chi's spirited and battle-filled question, Meidarumi's eyes regained their composure, even a tiny spark of fighting spirit flickered in her pupils. For Meidarumi, who has aspired to become the Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village since childhood, driven by ambition and eager to lead the village to glory, her previous performance truly put her to shame. Now, to regroup and fight again, she must unleash the momentum of a hidden mist genius. With Uchiha Chi's barrier, her other Keki Genkai, boiling release, will also be of great use. Even if her opponent is Kokuzu, the S-rank renegade ninja and underground gold exchange mastermind, she... Wait, Meidarumi was suddenly stunned. Did Uchiha Chi's barrier go awry? Hey, Uchiha Chi, I'm not in yet. Meidarumi frantically slapped the barrier, exclaiming, "Open the door, let me in." "What are you doing?" Sweat immediately dripped down to Rumi's forehead. She stared in amazement at Uchiha Chi, who was only a step away, yet seemed forever distant. She could almost see the young man before her, a halo above his head, smiling and waving at her before ascending to heaven. A pale red barrier suddenly rose between them. Meidarumi's pupils constricted, and she shouted, "Are you crazy? Are you going to fight this monster alone?" As the barrier rose, completely placing him and Kokuzu in the same space, breathing the same air, Uchiha Chi smiled. He turned and looked at Darumi, his eyes like the stars in the night sky, filled with inexplicable meaning. "Sorry, Tsukamiya-me, this is my escape route." Uchiha Chi paused, looked at the 2 people behind him, smiled, and explained, "The opponent is an S-rank rebel ninja with the power of Kage, This is an opponent we have no way to defeat even if we try our best, so this is the only way I can think of. Lead the opponent to a suitable venue, and then set up a barrier to delay his steps. Tsukumiya, take hidden away immediately. Whatever you want to do after that, I don't care, but now, this is my battlefield. After speaking, Uchiha Chi turned his head calmly, then, he reached out and pulled out a kunai from the ninja tool bag, held it in front of his cheek with his hand, pointed the cold blade with a cold light at Kakuzu, raised the corner of his mouth, and sneered defiantly, "Mr. Kakuzu, want to hurt them? Then step over my body first, tisk." Kakuzu frowned slightly and looked at Uchiha Chi with a little annoyance. The scene before him, the words of parting and death, invisibly pierced a soft spot deep within him. Once upon a time, as an elite member of the Tokigakure, he had faced similar situations. He too faced life or death crises, desperate moments. However, unlike now, when Uchiha Chi volunteered to lay down his life to cover the retreat, he had faced betrayal. The team assassinating the ninja god fell apart mid-strike, his teammates deserted and fled, leaving Kakuzu completely burdened with responsibility, forcing him to take action. And when Kakuzu fearfully set out alone to assassinate that godlike being, he failed as expected. Returning to the village devastated, he received no solace from the village, no understanding from his companions, no flowers or praise, not even a hospital bed to heal his wounds. What awaited him was the charge of mission failure and severe punishment, a cruel punishment for a ninja who had risked his life for the village. Another boring ninja game like this. Kakuzu shook his head, looking across at Uchiha Chi, and for the first time, he felt an interest in speaking a few more words. It was as if he were seeing his past self, transcending the passage of time, and addressed his younger self with a sober yet indifferent tone. "Poor kid, look at the reality. Not everything in this world will go as you wish. The longer you live, the more you realize that reality is filled with helplessness, pain, and emptiness. Teammate who's been with you through thick and thin can stab you in the back. Faith you've staked everything on can be shattered to nothing by a single wooden hand. Loyal higher-ups will only treat you as a tool, ready to be discarded at any moment." Kakuzu paused, a flicker of enthusiasm in his eyes. "But, only money will never betray you." Uchiha Chi took a deep breath and thought, "Sir, you're so right. Bonds, friendships? Those are just kidding. I've done all this, isn't it just for those 500 million? Isn't it just for this very moment?" Uchiha Chi nodded in approval, then suddenly opened his Sharingan. He brought his form to its peak. From this point forward, he would offer everything he had gained through training and struggle, then instantly ignite this accumulation, transforming it into power. He looked at Kakuzu and, clear-headed, shouted coldly, "Come on, monster, right here, right now, give me my destined death." A crimson glint flashed in Uchiha Chi's eyes, and he lunged forward. With a backhand, he unleashed 3 shurikens. One pierced Kakuzu's chest, while the other 2 collided in midair, changing their trajectory and arcing towards the mask hidden beneath Kakuzu's black robe. With information on Kakuzu, he naturally knew he possessed immortality. Only by piercing the 5 hearts beneath his 5 masks could he be utterly slain. However, facing the Uchiha Chi, who ignored his warnings, remained expressionless, and even dared to launch the attack, charging at him, Kakuzu retracted the Earthwrath's tentacles. His eyes were impassive, a coldness growing in intensity. He slowly unbuttoned his black robe and tossed it away. A tall, muscular body, covered in seams, emerged into the night breeze. He raised his hand slightly, clenched his fist, shrugged his shoulders, and sneered, his face filled with disdain and disdain. "Poor brat, you think you're such a fighter, then let me teach you, what do you mean by reality?" Kakuzu's disdain for your bravery is palpable, as if he wanted to beat you into a pig's head. Courage is the fruit of human wisdom. Anyone who belittles courage will be met with justice from the gangman. Triggers an S-rank long-term quest. Make Kakuzu understand that courage is greater than money. The settlement nodes vary depending on the other party's level of understanding, namely, understanding, joining, and surpassing. Current progress is 0 for 3, thanks to book friends 20230322221611619, the whimsical Insomniac, and Long Xianyan's Hong for their monthly tickets. Thanks to all the Godfathers and the Masters for their recommendation tickets. Please collect, read, and recommend. Bang bang bang. Chapter 46, Water-Style Water Fang Blade. Believe in miracles. With that, Kakuzu didn't let his guard down. He watched 3 shurikens barreling toward his weak spot. Though he didn't understand what was happening, he simply assumed it was Uchiha's luck. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and he stomped his long legs down the cliff face, sending several rocks flying. He launched a high whip kick. The rocks ripped through the night breeze and fell, sending 2 shurikens flying with a clang. Kokuzu dodged another shuriken. Meanwhile, Uchiha was already close. With a slight twist of his foot, his kunai spun in a bladed flower, and he thrust a sharp thrust straight at Kokuzu's heart. Kokuzu instantly adjusted his position, spun sideways, and delivered a fierce elbow strike to Uchiha's face. The movement was so fast that Uchiha couldn't even see it clearly. He felt the hairs on his neck stand on end, and alarm bells rang in his heart. Talent, combat intuition, beginner, S, activated. He instinctively ducked, dodging the incoming elbow. This moment left Kokuzu slightly stunned. Although he wasn't particularly skilled in taijutsu, his 70 years of combat experience and the physical strength enhanced by the Earth Grudge meant his movements were far beyond the reach of the Sharingan alone. Uchiha seized Kokuzu's momentary weakness and immediately swung his kunai at Kokuzu's left ankle. Simultaneously, he used a side kick from his Kumagakure swastika taijutsu technique, striking the crippled man's good leg with a powerful blow. Kokuzu's gaze fixed sharply. The sutures on his left foot parted, releasing 7 or 8 Earth Grudge threads that entangled Uchiha's kunai. Then, with a scorpion-like swing of his tail, he lifted his right leg and launched a fierce kick towards Uchiha's face. Uchiha shuddered again, instinctively crossing his arms to block. He simultaneously gripped his kunai, attempting to sever the fine Earth Grudge threads entangled within. He was sent flying into the air by a kick. Swoosh! The threads were severed simultaneously. It's over, Kokuzu declared indifferently. With a violent single palm thrust, he suddenly grabbed Uchiha's face and slammed it against the cliff face. Bang! The force was so strong that rocks flew and blood gushed out. Uchiha's head spun, his face disfigured by the blow. With his last remaining consciousness, he clutched his kunai and thrust it into his ninja tool bag. Kokuzu once again lifted the prone Uchiha from the cliff face, his eyes cold as he sneered, "It seems you're no better than this. Who gave you the courage to challenge me alone?" With that, Kokuzu's gaze icy, and he grabbed Uchiha and delivered a straight punch to the stomach. He then buckled his head and kneed him in the face, then flipped over with a spinning kick to the shoulder, a scorpion tail kick to the chest, and a spinning elbow to the face. A sweeping kick to the face was followed by a leg kick to the back of the head, followed by a kick to the face. Each move was ruthless and unleashed his full might on Uchiha. The final kick was like a ball, sending Uchiha flying and slamming into the edge of the barrier. His head was covered in blood, his face barely recognizable as human. Whoa! Kokuzu breathed a sigh of relief. Even a spherical ball would have been shattered by that blow, let alone a human head. But Kokuzu glanced sideways at the corner, where Uchiha lay motionless, a slight frown on his face. The barrier hasn't opened yet, so he's still alive. Beyond the barrier, separated by another barrier, Madarumi and Hidden could only watch as Uchiha charged forward with reckless abandon. And then, swiftly, in less than a minute, Kokuzu sent him flying back with a merciless flurry of kicks. It was a tragedy. It was impossible to tell he was the handsome young man from just a minute ago. Now, if anything, he looked more like a battered mess of tofu. Madarumi, Hidden, they both fell silent. So, big brother, you're so fierce and aggressive, but you can't even cut a single wound before being beaten back. What's your plan? But just then, Uchiha, battered to pulp, suddenly stretched his fingers, slowly grasping the barrier and the cliff face to climb up. The swelling and bloodied wounds on his head, horribly battered, quickly healed. Soon, not even a scratch remained. This was because Uchiha had preemptively used a technique newly derived from Shinin, the forbidden technique, flesh regeneration. It can rapidly heal injuries by consuming vitality and stamina. In the future, Orochimaru would even refine this technique into a miraculous regeneration technique. Uchiha regained his full strength and stood firm. Though covered in blood and looked ferocious and intimidating, his spirit remained undiminished. Far from feeling any shame at his defeat, he actually laughed with a deep breath. Ha 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 ha, I knew it. Uchiha pulled a kunai from his ninja tool bag, untied the Earth Grudge thread from it, and wrapped it around his finger, pulling. It's about as tough as ninja silk. And, without the Earth Grudge entity, Kokuzu won't be able to control it anymore. It can be used as a ninja tool. Madarumi and Hidden, standing by, were stunned. Seeing Uchiha Chi's cheerful expression, they felt a lump in their throats. Are you crazy? You rushed in and got beaten up just to figure out something so inexplicable. Madarumi glared at Uchiha Chi, who was only a step away. He slapped the barrier hard and shouted angrily, "Open the barrier quickly and let me in. You'll die if you keep going like this." Huh? Uchiha Chi heard the voice and turned around suddenly. Seeing that Darumi Mei and Hidden were still there, he was speechless. "Why haven't you left yet? Didn't I tell you to run away?" Hearing this, not only Darumi Mei, but even Hidden's face showed anger. "Stop being a self-righteous hero here. If you want to leave, let's go together." Uchiha Chi was silent for a moment, a rare moment, not knowing how to respond. Finally, he pretended not to hear and changed the subject, solemnly addressing the two. "This isn't some random thing. This information is crucial to me." Then, Uchiha Chi looked at Darumi Mei and asked solemnly, "It's nice that you're still here. Could you tell me what the seal is for the Water Fang Blade?" Darumi Mei frowned slightly. The Water Fang Blade Jutsu was considered a secret technique of the Darumi family. The future 6th Mizukage, Chijiro, had used it against Otsutsuki Urashiki. The 6th Path's ninja rod, capable of withstanding Otsutsuki Urashiki's attack, combined its transformative and low power consumption, making it a highly valuable ninjutsu. Hesitation crossed her face, but after a moment's thought, she spoke. "It's Mawei-si." "What are you going to do?" Uchiha Chi nodded. While the one Magatama Sharingan could see the flow of chakra in a person, it was only a rough approximation, far from being able to replicate a ninjutsu. However, knowing the seal, combined with the recorded chakra flow, would allow for a high probability of replicating the jutsu. Uchiha Chi had tested his natural chakra and found it to be water and fire, perfectly meeting the requirements for this jutsu. "Phew, you'll find out in a moment." Without further explanation, Uchiha Chi turned and formed hand seals with his hands around his kunai. Mawei-si. With just 2 attempts, he successfully condensed a swirling water blade, approximately 2.5 feet long, from the kunai. Just now, Uchiha Chi had keenly observed that this jutsu, used by Madarumi, had severed Kokuzu's earth blade. And the brief, fierce battle had proven that in basic taijutsu, even with his Sharingan activated and his innate combat instincts, Uchiha Chi was no match for Kokuzu, who possessed over 70 years of combat experience. If he simply attacked with a basic attack, he would surely lose. However, in the world of ninjutsu, ninjutsu is the very thing that created miracles. Uchiha Chi, possessing a vast repertoire of forbidden ninjutsu techniques, including masterful shuriken manipulation techniques, believed that a miracle would eventually unfold in his hands. So, the first step is to borrow some ninja tools from Kokuzu. Thanks to book friends 201901301215219295, book friend 201708190347555198, Eve JJ, sleeping elementary school student, and I am invincible for their monthly tickets. Thanks to all the godfathers and masters for their recommendations. Please collect, recommend, and keep reading. This is really important to me. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 47, One False Accusation After Another. Ninja battles are battles of intelligence. Uchiha Chi attacked with taijutsu, and Kokuzu retaliated with his own. Besides being enraged and wanting to give the impoverished brat a beating, Kokuzu was also testing him. After all, the brat had rushed forward without a word, casting a barrier and confidently promising to shield the other two from their escape. Kokuzu didn't believe he wasn't capable. Caution had been his biggest trump card from the Warring States period until now. Ever since being slapped in the face by that man's wooden clone, Kokuzu's eyes had cleared. He had etched those 2 words into his bones. Now, seeing Uchiha Chi, after enduring a torrent of taijutsu attacks, regain his footing, like an invincible monster, his wounds completely healed. Aside from looking a little tired and panting, he was in fantastic shape. Kokuzu narrowed his eyes slightly. Medical ninjutsu? No, such a powerful healing effect, something's amiss. This level of combat stamina, even while using palm magic while fighting, wasn't as exaggerated. Thinking of this, Kokuzu tilted his head slightly and glanced upwards at the cliff face. Besides the 3 little ghosts, he remembered there was also a tall, middle-aged man in a yellow robe. Furthermore, that man gave him a subtle feeling, making him feel difficult to kill. Just as Kokuzu glanced sideways, He suddenly froze and looked in a direction beyond the barrier. Unbeknownst to him, the middle-aged ninja in the yellow robe had already stood on the cliff face outside the barrier, his eyes filled with inexplicable shock, staring intently at the poor little ghost across from him. Seeing this, Kakuzu instantly understood. That guy taught this poor little ghost this terrifying forbidden technique. Are these two master and disciple? Is he impressed by his disciple's progress? Could it be that this guy wants to use me to hone his disciple? Kakuzu frowned, sensing that something wasn't going on. This poor brat was throwing a barrier for a 1v1, a true man-on-man battle, then unleashing this tricky forbidden technique, and then pushing his teammates aside to attack alone, acting like he was giving me no respect unless I killed him. Even this 70-year-old comrade was terrified. He wondered inwardly who was trying to blackmail whom. Now, the situation was clear. This kid, he really had someone behind the scenes. With this thought, Kakuzu's mindset began to subtly shift. On the field, Uchiha Chi looked at Kakuzu, his gaze slightly focused. He briefly sensed his internal state. After using the forbidden technique, flesh transformation, to restore his form, his body felt like rusted parts, not as good as before. While this technique was powerful, the side effects were also extremely dramatic. Shinin was able to use it with near zero side effects because he combined it with his deficient zero-tail chakra, essentially replacing the power supply. Orochimaru could unleash this technique with such force thanks to his soft body transformation and rebirth techniques. He could simply replace it with another body when it was worn out. Uchiha Chi, on the other hand, was expending his own vital energy. He estimated that, given his current body's condition, he could only use the forbidden technique, flesh rebirth, 2 more times before seeking medical attention. Otherwise, he would die from the drain of his vital energy. Therefore, he only had 2 chances. With this thought in mind, Uchiha Chi took a deep breath, his Sharingan flashing a streak of light. He lunged forward again in the same stance, the slight difference being that this time he held the whirlwind water blade entrusted to him by the Rumi Mei. Water style, water fang blade. Swish. 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 3 shurikens pierced the air. Trying to use the same attack again, Kakuzu's eyes narrowed, and he immediately shifted his stance. He swung out 3 tangled earth grudge tentacles, knocking back shurikens as he crushed Uchiha Chi. After the previous physical exchange, Kakuzu had a rough idea of the brat's reflexes. A bit perverted. If it weren't for his unique anatomy, allowing him to unexpectedly entangle his kune with earth grudge threads, the brat's previous pedicure combo would have been successful. Now, the opponent unleashed a water knife capable of severing the tentacles. The abacus beads clattered, nearly sending it flying to blast the 70-year-old comrade in the face. Kakuzu was no fool. He wouldn't stand still and let Uchiha Chi pedicure him again. The battle immediately escalated. Uchiha Chi, seeing Kakuzu's change of tactics, shooting a flurry of earth grudge threads, was instantly delighted. This water knife was more effective than a kune. Before he could rush over to give Kakuzu a pedicure, the old man gifted him with a treasure trove of priceless ninja tools. Uchiha Chi slammed on the brakes, stopping against the cliff face. Then, he grasped his sword and swung it in a beautiful, swirling pattern. His Sharingan fixed his gaze on the tentacles hurling at him. Then, he braced his blade, lunged, and swung with a sudden, powerful blow. First, he used Cloud Flow, Deception Slash, tricking Kakuzu's tentacle past his right shoulder. Then, swiftly, he followed it up with Cloud Flow, 3 Moon Slash. A perfect replica of the Cloud Flow sword technique he had witnessed only once in the volcanic sea. The swirling water fang blade suddenly lit up with 3 crescent-shaped arcs of light. With a clang. With a clang. With a clang. Kakuzu's 3 tentacles were instantly severed. Uchiha Chi quickly crouched down, gathering the vast clump of tentacles dangling from the cliff face into a ball like he was shuffling mahjong tiles. With a single large hand, he scooped them all into his ninja tool bag. Then, with a grin on his face, he spun and scurried away, ducking, turning, and rolling to avoid several tentacle attacks. Quickly and evasively, he pulled out the empty ninja tool thread bearings and quickly straightened out the tangle of earth wrath threads and installed them. Only when he saw the ninja tool thread bearings were fully wound did Uchiha Chi finally let out a smile of relief. While Chi now possessed a vast array of ninjutsu and forbidden techniques, ignoring the smokeless fire techniques like Great Fireball and Phoenix Fire, The only two techniques that could truly threaten Kokuzu were the two he had just learned from the Great Elder, Uchiha Setsuna, the Uchiha Ryu Silk Shuriken Jutsu. This was the core of all Uchiha Chi's current combat tactics. In a word, quick. It's so fast that the opponent has no time to form hand seals, unleash ninjutsu, or defend. When they can only dodge, they'll inevitably reveal a flaw, allowing Uchiha Chi to seize the opportunity and fight to the death. Third-rate Uchiha use shuriken for feints, second-rate Uchiha use shuriken for sneak attacks, and first-rate Uchiha use shuriken to seize opportunities. And the superb Uchiha-style silk shuriken technique. It's rated S because, in itself, it's a killer move. Thanks to book friend 20210420055330447, book friend 202,330,423,633,021, book friend 20190801021329930, book friend 20220829000726050, Yejin, brother Adao. Book friend 2017081322224222728, and Yin Yinjing for their monthly tickets. Thanks to all the godfathers and masters for your recommendations. Please collect, recommend, and read. Bang Bang Bang. Chapter 48 The correct way to perform shuriken. The full moon sank, a faint glow filing the horizon. The gentle early spring breeze, which should have been gentle, now surged. As the earthwrath's tentacles lashed down, the sounds of bang, bang became almost continuous. Yet, none of them hit. Each time, just before a strike, Uchiha Chi would suddenly, as if by some stroke of genius, duck, roll sideways, or somersault. Even with no vision, he managed to dodge the attack. Tisk, such unnatural intuition, Kokuzu frowned, watching Uchiha Chi, who was constantly dodging and sprinting, fiddling with something in his hands. He felt he couldn't continue like this. He then manipulated his tentacles to smash a large crater in the cliff face, pulling out huge rocks one after another and hurling them towards Uchiha Chi. Whoosh! Whoosh! The rocks ripped through his face, suddenly crashing down. Even Madarumi, who was outside the barrier, couldn't help but gasp. This move was almost equivalent to a dozen people simultaneously performing Earth-style rock cannon, completely blocking the opponent's escape route and forcing them to counter. However, this was only the beginning. Kokuzu manipulated his tentacles to hurl boulders while he himself formed the sea seal with both hands. The next moment, two masked figures suddenly emerged from behind Kokuzu, dragging their pitch-black bodies, woven from vast strands of earth grudge silk, and crouched on Kokuzu's shoulders. It was Kokuzu's fire-style and wind-style masks, working in tandem. What was about to unfold was the composite ninjutsu, flame wind rumble and strange face explosion. This technique combined the Earth Grudge fire-style masked monster and the Earth Grudge wind-style masked monster, simultaneously using fire-style, head condensation and wind-style, suppression, creating a vast sea of fire. Coupled with Kokuzu's preemptive use of boulders to block the path, Uchiha Chi would be left with no escape in this confined space. Kokuzu's expression was impassive as he pronounced his verdict in a cold voice, "Poor brat, the game is over." With those words, he half-clenched his palm. Boom! A sea of fire erupted, a violent storm raged. The entire space was engulfed by Kokuzu's attack. At that moment, all that could be seen was dust, boulders, scythe-like wind blades, long tongues of flame emanating from the ground, and a tangle of sparks and debris dancing in all directions. A second later, everything was about to unfold. Yet, amidst this hellish scene, this despair that shattered the view, Uchiha Chi strangely felt no fear. His eyes widened, as if he wanted to record every inch of this apocalyptic scene. He felt a surge of electricity throughout his body, from head to toe, from fingertips to heart. Then, this current surged from the outside in, piercing deeper into the cells, attempting to activate some hidden switch deep within the body. Dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins surged through his brain, bringing Uchiha Chi to a near peak of ecstasy. Talent, combat intuition, developed to a higher degree. You can now use your body with greater skill. The next moment, Uchiha Chi lowered his head slightly, glancing at the earth resentment threads entwined around his fingers, a grin etched across his lips. He raised his head, taking one last look at Kokuzu's location. His fingers curled slightly, their pads arched. The Magatama in his Sharingan swirled wildly, nearly forming a single black line. His eyes were filled with a frenzy of risking everything. Come, fight. If you don't fight, you'll lose, and the end of the battle is death. I'm risking everything for that moment of death. Here, I shall find my wish. With that, Uchiha Chi closed his eyes. His single Magatama Sharingan couldn't keep up with the speed of his battle at this moment. So, he closed his eyes and trusted his feelings. He trusted the battle plan he had already formulated in his mind. So, the first step, Uchiha Chi pulled out the 4 remaining shurikens wrapped in silk thread from his bag of ninja tools and hurled them fiercely toward the sea of fire, the boulders, and the wind blades. Swish! 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 The shurikens pierced the air, dragging 4 jet black threads along with them as they pierced a boulder hurtling toward him from the distance. Then, Uchiha Chi pulled gently with both hands, and the threads he had laid down while dodging suddenly stretched straight out from the ground, their point of convergence just beneath his feet. Like a bow stretched to full moon, ready to be released. Bang! The massive bow, composed of silk threads, served as the initial thrust, propelling Uchiha Chi forward with all its might. Like a sharp arrow, he plunged headfirst into the sea of fire, pulling at the threads of the 4 shurikens he had launched, changing direction in mid-air, spinning his body, tapping on the incoming boulder for momentum, accelerating ever faster. He slipped through the gap created by the collision of 2 massive rocks, somersaulted as violent wind blades burst forth, and formed hand seals before the crisscrossing flames burned him. Maui Si. Water style, water fang blade. Uchiha Chi wielded the water blade in his right hand, controlling its direction with his left, pulling the thread. He spiraled rapidly in midair, spinning the blade. Suddenly, his eyes opened. Dead, Kokuzu narrowed his eyes slightly. Everything before him was engulfed in a sea of wind and flames. Combined with the massive rock he had previously thrown, blocking the path, the opponent had no way to escape. Short of employing a jutsu more powerful than his own, Kokuzu could not imagine any other way for the opponent to survive such an onslaught. The jutsu he employed was derived from the hearts of the strongest individuals he had hunted over decades: earth style, earth spear, wind style, suppression, lightning style, false darkness, fire style, headwork, and water style, water curtain. 5 hearts. The 5 jutsu he could perform were all near peak performance in their respective attribute areas. Kokuzu didn't believe a kid his age could possess such abilities. So, he was probably dead, or even if not, he was very close. Kokuzu turned his head slightly, his gaze icy as he swept over the 3 figures outside the barrier. He glanced past his target, Hidden, and Terumi beside him, then in another direction, at Shinin, dressed in a yellow robe and with a calm expression. Kokuzu couldn't help but narrow his eyes, wondering what this man's purpose was in standing there. Would it interfere with his capture of Hidden? After all, this man showed no reaction even to his disciple's death before him. He must be a cold and heartless person. Standing opposite Kokuzu, seeing this terrifying composite jutsu, Terumi and Hidden couldn't help but swallow hard, their eyes filled with horror. This attack is even more terrifying than that wind style just now. Uchiha Chi. Terumi gritted her teeth, her gaze nervously searching the barrier. But no matter how she looked, within the barrier of the cliff face, beyond where Kokuzu stood, all she could see was a blazing sea of fire. Hidden knelt against a tree trunk, grief-stricken, and gazed upon this despairing scene. All he could see was fire, 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 Kokuzu, fire, fire, fire. This man in the black mask, wielding tentacles and ninjutsu, was the very definition of corn. And all he could hear was the roaring wind, the roaring fire, and the resounding cries of the refugees from the land of hot water, who had suffered heavy casualties from Kokuzu's ninjutsu, below. Hidden clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and gazed upon the scene with trembling eyes. He felt a little wet. He squeezed his eyes shut, clasped his palms against the tree trunk, and tears welled up in his eyes. Then, with all his might, he roared mournfully into the barrier, Uchiha Chi, if you're still fucking alive, then, get out. As the wailing faded, a moment of silence descended. The silent flames made even breathing difficult. But then, the blazing sea of fire suddenly trembled. As if a dump truck were barreling through it. Gravel, dirt, weeds, sparks. All of it flew and toppled as a swirling ball of blue, dancing blade light swept through it. Suddenly, a roar of wind surged. A gaping hole was ripped open in the wall of blazing flames. Uchiha Chi, like a sharp arrow, soared through the air, piercing Kokuzu's head. He took a deep breath, gripped his blade with both hands, and swung it with all his might towards Kokuzu's neck. The water blade, accelerating to its limit and already squeaking, ripped into his cold, ruthless, crimson eyes. Kokuzu's eyes suddenly widened. Please collect, recommend, and read again. Bang, bang, bang. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Burst the Heart and Ignite the Fire. The swirling water blade squeaked. Even before they reached Kokuzu, he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Uchiha Chi's swift attack completely caught Kokuzu off guard, yet it also hit him hard. True, Kokuzu possessed near immortality. As long as the 5 resurrection coins he carried with him weren't all consumed, he could resurrect endlessly. But even so, the head held a special place. Severing it would weaken his control over the Earth's wrath, creating an opening for Uchiha Chi to exploit. This would give Kokuzu a brief window to attack the 5 hearts still attached to his body. This was something Kokuzu absolutely could not accept. A sense of mortal danger, unlike anything he had felt in decades, erupted in this moment. How could I possibly let you succeed? Kokuzu's eyes widened, his teeth gnashing as he roared. He formed the sea seal with both hands, his skin instantly turning a dark black. This was Earth style, Earth Spear. Despite its name, the Earth Spear was a true defensive jutsu. It hardened the skin into either an offensive or defensive state, offering immense destructive power, capable of easily knocking down a wall or blocking the blast of a detonating tag. However, this jutsu had a significant flaw. After unleashing the technique, the body would become stiff due to the hardening. This prevented Kokuzu from using the physical techniques that crushed Uchiha Chi. Uchiha Chi's gaze narrowed, his lips curling. The water blade that had been swirling down towards Kokuzu vanished, leaving only the kunai in his hand. He then reversed his grip and thrust the kunai into the wind-style, Earth Grudge mask crouching on Kokuzu's left shoulder. Puff! The sharp blade shattered. The wind-style, Earth Grudge mask shattered, barely missing the heart within. What? Kokuzu gasped, his dark green eyes filled with disbelief. The hardened skin escaped Uchiha Chi's water blade. Just as he was about to succeed, Uchiha Chi unexpectedly switched targets. It was as if he knew all his intel. In a moment of desperation, Kokuzu dodged sideways, quickly using a secret technique to control the fire-style, Earth Blade mask on his right shoulder. He opened his mouth wide and suddenly unleashed a blazing ball of fire at the near-missing Uchiha Chi. Fire-style, Head Blade. Upon ignition, it would transform into a vast sea of flames. However, facing this deadly jutsu, his scarlet Sharingan reflected the fireball about to hit his face, but Uchiha Chi's eyes remained remarkably calm. He raised his index fingers, and a dark thread suddenly materialized from the ground. With his fingertips circling and pulling, his hands grasped the thread and yanked hard. Uchiha Chi was thrust and pulled downward, slipping beneath Kokuzu's crotch. With a twist of his foot, he leaped onto his back and stabbed Kokuzu's water-style, Earth Blade mask with a kunai. A fireball erupted, crashing into the barrier with a thud, exploding in a shower of dazzling fireworks. Kokuzu's face darkened, veins etched across his forehead. Another illogical intuition. This kid's body reacts faster than his mind. Damn it, he's like a flea. With that thought, Kokuzu's eyes darkened and he clasped his hands together. The 4 masks behind him twisted, and the pitch-black body of Earth Blade half crawled out, opening its maw at Uchiha Chi. Wind-style, Suppression. Lightning-style, False Darkness. Fire-style, Headache. Water-style, Water Curtain. 4 masks unleashed ninjutsu at Uchiha Chi like machine guns. Boom, 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 boom. Water balls splattered, wind whirled, lightning raced, and flames burned. Uchiha Chi, seeing this, smirked fiercely. He once again tugged at the silk threads, his entire body spinning and leaping like a sharp arrow. He closed his eyes, letting his body follow the pulse. When he opened them again, he had slipped through the gaps between the 4 ninjutsu and landed back on Kokuzu's back. Immediately, Uchiha Chi leaped high onto Kokuzu's back, tumbling 360 degrees in midair. He clasped his hands together, swung his arms overhead, and then yanked all the threads. The threads on the ground suddenly straightened, shattering the earthen wall and, driven by inertia, whipping around Kokuzu's body. They bound his limbs, chest, abdomen, head, and even the masked Earthwrath's body behind him. Pulling. Strangling. Squeak, 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 a tooth-grinding sound echoed repeatedly. What is this? Kokuzu's pupils suddenly shrank as he realized he was being entangled by his own Earth resentment threads. He immediately struggled mightily. However, bound by multiple Earth resentment threads, the more he struggled, the tighter they became. Only his body, strengthened by Earth-style, Earth Spear, could forcibly tear through some of the threads. Escape would clearly require at least several seconds. But even these few seconds of control were more than enough for Uchiha Chi. He took a deep breath, formed hand seals, and drew his kunai. Maui. The water-style, water fang blade swirled in his hands once more. Then, with a fierce look in his eyes, Uchiha clenched his teeth fiercely. Suck hiss, the cold air rushed into his chest, turning into fuel, sparking sparks between his teeth. Even his crimson eyes, at that moment, glowed like a blazing fire. This is the moment, this is what I've been asking for. Uchiha's eyes lashed out in anger, and he slammed his hand against his heart, striding forward. Fire style, chakra mode, activated. Blazing fire attribute chakra surged through Uchiha's body. Burning soul, exceed my limits, the power emanating from his heart instantly filled every corner of his body. Instantly, flames surged, illuminating the entire cliff, the castle, and the refugee camp. Countless refugees from the land of hot water raised their heads, squinting at the barrier growing from the cliff face. Within the barrier, a massive sun rose. Its blinding light shattered the darkness of the moonlit night, ushering in the dawn of dawn. Uchiha, what are you doing? Madarumi and Hidden exclaimed, their eyes wide open. Shannon, watching silently from the cliff face, finally broke his composure and gazed at the scene with shock. He'll die with this kind of technique, this kind of power, even if he steals the forbidden technique, flesh transformation, from me, he'll still die. Is he crazy? Is he crazy? For such an insignificant bond, for two so-called friends who've only just met for less than a day, such a person. Shannon clenched his fists, staring in shock at Uchiha within the barrier. Shannon's parched heart seemed to be reignited by the rising sun. A sudden surge of jealousy and a tangled longing rose within him. If he had a friend like this, on the day the Sky Ninja Village was annihilated, would he choose to live and die together? Or would he, like now, gnashing his shame and living a miserable existence? A life worse than death? Within the barrier, Uchiha's eyes bulged with anger. He was almost unable to control his unbridled strength, and could only roar to relieve the pressure. He gripped the sword with both hands, and a surge of fire attribute chakra madly poured into the water fang blade in his hands, causing the spinning water blade to suddenly evaporate. From the hilt, a flaming blade over 6 feet long suddenly burst forth. Wielding the forcibly transformed blazing sword, Uchiha's eyes blazed red as he swung his hand, unleashing a dazzling stream of flames. He shouted angrily at the sweating Kokuzu, just now, weren't you enjoying the fight? Now, it's my turn. Thank you to the Godfathers for your monthly passes, and thank you to the gentlemen for your recommendations. Please bookmark, recommend, and keep reading. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 50, Narrow Space, Confrontation. Bang. As Uchiha's heartbeat landed, Kokuzu's heart skipped a beat. A long-lost panic suddenly rose, like 10,000 ants crawling around his heart, a chill swirling through his veins. He had last felt this way 45 years ago. Carrying an unshakable responsibility, he trembled as he stepped forward to confront the wooden clone of the ninja god. But what filled him with despair was that the wooden clone stood atop a 200-meter-tall wooden figure. At that moment, Uchiha's body surged with fire attribute chakra, and the surrounding temperature gradually became dry, scorching, and scorching. A brilliant sun gradually rose before his eyes. A familiar yet distant fear awakened Kokuzu's deepest hidden weakness and fear. As these emotions gradually tore through his heart, clogged with threads of earthly resentment and paralyzed by the desire for money, his eyes widened involuntarily. The Earthwrath's tentacles began to bulge uncontrollably from the seams in its body, each one standing on end. Like a dark creature with its fur standing on end, it instinctively hid within its fur for a sense of security. The moon faded, and the world fell silent. Endless darkness enveloped Kokuzu. But the radiance of the sun, growing ever brighter before him, left Kokuzu with nowhere to hide. Under this compassionate and equal light, Kokuzu, forced to recall the past, His expression gradually crumbled. What a joke, mad, a desperate lunatic. How could such a technique be used by an Uchiha with a single Magatama Sharingan? Kokuzu immediately realized that this was a forbidden technique. And undoubtedly, it was a fatal move beyond ordinary forbidden techniques. Kokuzu cursed furiously inwardly. What was his grudge against this poor brat? He actually wanted to use such a technique on him. What a joke. This should be their first meeting, right? Kokuzu felt his scalp tingle as he watched Uchiha Chi's aura grow increasingly terrifying. Immediately, he sprang into action. Kokuzu released his Earth-style, Earth Spear, allowing his body to be sliced and shattered by the Earth Grudge threads, sending a shower of blood scattering. Tissues, organs, the Earth-style, Earth Grudge heart, head, and even limbs scattered, only to be reassembled by the tentacles. The number of missing parts was incalculable, and Kokuzu had no time to consider. Haha, facing Uchiha Chi, who was already roaring furiously from his uncontrollable strength, Kokuzu, having forcibly freed himself in this way, immediately clasped his hands together and formed the sea seal. 4 dark shadows leaped from Kokuzu's back, 3 standing side by side, and 1 standing alongside Kokuzu. These 3 shadows, standing side by side, represented the 3 attributes of the heart: wind, fire, and thunder. 3 Earth Grudge masked monsters opened their mouths wide, emitting white, red, and blue light. 3 ninjutsu combined, gathering energy, converging into a terrifying blue chakra cannon. About to be unleashed was a move even more terrifying than the combined ninjutsu: flame wind waves, strange face explosion, Earth Grudge, final shot. At that moment, Uchiha Chi's final roar rang out. Now, my turn. Uchiha Chi watched Kokuzu's movements across from him as he summoned 4 masked monsters in quick succession. The lead, the Earth Grudge mask, used the water-style, water curtain, casting a massive torrent of water onto the ground. Kokuzu, standing nearby, formed hand seals and unleashed a massive water barrier, obscuring Uchiha Chi's view and concealing the other mask's movements. Having read the original novel and known the enemy's detailed intelligence, Uchiha Chi could easily guess that this was preparing the other 3 masks for their most powerful combined ninjutsu: Earth Grudge, final shot. The enemy was already poised for a thrilling clash. How could he let them down? Uchiha Chi gripped a flaming sword in both hands, his lips curling in an exhilarating smile. Right now, he felt like he could chop down a mountain with a single blow. This kind of power, surpassing even mortals, came at the price of the very death Uchiha Chi had always dreamed of. And his opponent was Kokuzu, a cage-level powerhouse. Whether he slew Kokuzu with his sword or blasted him to death with his ultimate move, Earth Grudge, final shot, it was a guaranteed win for Uchiha Chi. If he died in a battle of all his might, he would take home a whopping 500 million RMB. 500 million. That's 500 million RMB. Just a quick calculation showed that even if he simply deposited that money in the bank, he'd earn over 7.5 million RMB in pure interest annually. He could live a life of leisure. Such a wonderful life, right before his eyes. With this thought, Uchiha Chi's eyes held no trace of hesitation. He suddenly stepped forward, his sword raised. With one step, his entire body erupted with utterly violent and blazing chakra, as if a brilliant sun rose behind him. The cliff wall cracked, a dense spiderweb of cracks spreading. Wielding such violent power, Uchiha Chi felt as if he were transported back to his childhood. Like the young savior Ziodo in Dragon Fighter, he raised his sword high and chanted, "Victory, ascending dragon sword." This thrilled the child to the core. If someone had shouted from behind, "Great opportunity, Zio C," Uchiha Chi would have been so excited that he would have been ecstatic, turning into a hysterical, euphoric response. "You thought I could use the ascending dragon sword? Wrong." I'd have transformed right there into a child setting off firecrackers, chanting, "Holy sword, oh my holy sword." After all, that was the life C had truly experienced. At that moment, a cacophony of memories from that year in the ninja world flashed before his eyes like a kaleidoscope. Uchiha Shisui, Uchiha Setsuna, Uchiha Ichiro, Uchiha Obito and his grandmother, the owner of the ninja tool shop, Hiden, Madarumi, Shenin, Kokuzu, the Kumagakure trio, the evil god cult trio. Each face flashed through a fleeting, yet still long, reverie. Finally, Uchiha Chi fixed his gaze, twisted the hilt of his sword, and held it overhead. Like King Arthur raising an curry stick, the 6-foot-long blazing blade erupted with another surge of flames. The blazing flame soared, reaching the heavens. like a brilliant greatsword of justice rising from the sun. Then, Uchiha Chi raised his greatsword, his voice rising, and roared, "Since we must finally say goodbye, then this sword shall be called Final Blade, farewell." The mighty sword slashed down, splitting even the drifting clouds in two. At the same moment, Kakuzu's face on the other side also darkened, and he roared, "You think you can kill me? You're dreaming." Earth's wrath. Final shot. With a roar, the chakra cannon roared, unleashing a blue beam filled with a deadly aura. The next moment, a subtitle suddenly jumped up, "Dang." This chapter ends, and the side storyline about Kakuzu has come to a close. Now, the main storyline begins. If you like this, please support me with one follow-up read every day. This is really important for a new author. Just to report, I've received the second round of recommendations. I'm still a few hundred follow-up reads short for the third round. Need help? I've already started writing, and as long as I can make it to the fourth round, I promise to update it as soon as it's released, so you can enjoy it. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.